Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Public Facilities Budget Committee meeting, committee hearings. We appreciate everybody that's here this morning. Our committee will be joined by another member of our committee shortly. Just got a text, running just a little late, so it'll be coming in, but we do have a quorum with our chairman here as well. So we're just going to get underway. My understanding that Jen and or Kitty are going to give us some opening instructions.
Oh, there it is. Hey, okay. Okay, so really quickly, we're just gonna walk through a couple things that are included in your budget binders. And actually, I think that all of you have already heard this. So we can probably skip right over that. We're gonna nix that because all of you guys have already heard this spiel. I will tell you really quickly, today we're gonna be, at least this morning, we're gonna be on tab 25. You will notice that there are 3 other tabs labeled 25. You have 25A fund, 25D fund, and 25DM fund. Those are the line item detail reports for each of those respective funds, but the full summary is under just the 25 tab. So if somebody has a question about line item detail in any of those funds, that's how you find what they're referencing, okay? All right, that's it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Tab 25 is where we are. We were also given a slightly revised sheet this morning from what was emailed out originally with our schedule. I believe it's slightly revised. So we're just starting with the Department of Public Facilities and Buildings and Grounds. So we invite those reps or rep down.
The 3 of me.
And as always, before we get started, just please give us the name and title.
Tim Carr, Director of Public Facilities.
Chad Marks, Deputy Director of Finance for Public Facilities.
Josh Rothwell, Assistant Deputy Director of Public Facilities, Buildings and Grounds.
Thank you, gentlemen. Tim, were you here in the previous 2 days? My understanding is we're just kind of starting, just a general overview. You've been through this before, starting with FTEs, talking about where things are going with that, and other items of note to you. And then we might ask more specific questions for follow-up.
Yeah, I'll start. We currently have no new FTEs. Our budget's staying pretty much the same. You see the 13% increase. That's for the project that we've put into the budget for the HRC building. Our budget's basically all contractual. Lease agreements, utilities, any sort of maintenance. Not all, but the majority of our budget has no fluff in it. It's all contractual. It's all employees. There's no, like I said, there's no new full-time employees. We've actually, aside from adding this project in for the HRC building, we're actually, I had it written down somewhere, about $300,000 less than we were last year in overall budget. So things are, we were able to make those additional reductions due to our upgrades in lighting, LED lighting, moving our chemical treatment plant for the cooling tower in the HRC building. And so that brings down the water usage. That also brings down the sewer usage, which goes off of units, off of water use. Other than that, it's pretty cut and dry.
The one major project, like Josh said, that we added is the power washing of the maintenance for the HRC GOP building. It's like $500,000. And Kitty just informed us that is coming out of fund balance.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I do have a copy of that project in the inspection report. If anyone would like to see it afterwards, I did bring that along.
Okay.
And that's a project also that's been put in, I guess, capital for the last couple of years. And has
3
been
years.
Denied, so we were, told to put in those maintenance.
Kitty looked to be on the edge of her seat there.
Oh, I'd just add, yeah, so we did in yesterday's, admin services, review the different uses of fund balance in the budget, and, this particular project, is proposed to be funded with the use of fund balance. So that you'll see on the local share spreadsheet under the operating tab in the front of the book. It doesn't, the uses of fund balance aren't reflected at the department level, so that's why we wanted to call it out separately. And again, just to Tim's point that, in reviewing capital project requests, would be considered maintenance rather than a capital project, and therefore that's why it's, budgeted in the operating budget.
And we can utilize fund balance because this is a non-recurring expense.
Correct.
So that's the where you see the percentage of the change at 13.3%. That's where the increase in my overall budget comes from.
All right, very good, appreciate that. Questions, comments regarding
Chair-
buildings and grounds?
Mr. Chairman,
certainly.
I note that you have now added an expense for employee apparel, $1,400, which has never been in the budgets before. Please explain that.
So per the contract, the agreement that the county's made with CSEA 6300, that's for boots. We're now supplying boots for our workers.
Safety toe
Correct.
boots to prevent
Injuries.
injuries.
Yes, sir.
It's a safety issue.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Josh.
Yep.
I do have one other question,
Okay.
and that is for Lucas Avenue.
Yes, sir.
Your building rent lease is going down by $115,000.
That is because the build-outs were taken care of. That's why we had to make that budget amendment last month, was with at the time of the budget, the previous year, this current year, the department hadn't decided whether or not the build-outs were gonna be paid through the length of the agreement, which is 10 years, or if they were gonna do it within 12 months. And they opted for 12 months, which expired just this last month.
Thank you for that clarification. I just wanted people to understand that this was not a dramatic change in the lease
Yeah.
cost.
So it's odd with our leases, or not odd, but how it works is it goes upon whenever the lease was signed and taken care of. So if it's in February, you have 2 months of payment at X amount of dollars, and then per the agreement, if it's a 3.5% increase per year, the following 10 months are 3.5% higher. So it doesn't get tricky, but that's where sometimes the numbers can fluctuate from year to year, because it doesn't go from January to December. Some of these leases are 7 months at one cost, the additional months at another cost, so.
Thank you, Josh.
Yep.
From, just a question on the power washing of the buildings I'm assuming with that cost, that's all outsourced? Does our crew do any of that, or that's an all outsourced project?
Yeah, no, it's all outsourced, and the title that I chose to use for the project when I submitted it was, the power washing was the first thing, and I probably maybe should have used other words.
Sure.
So they're not just power washing. The power washing would be like the end result. The building will be cleaned. So they're gonna be recaulking, like around windows, all the joints, repointing, remortaring, and then they would power wash, and then they will seal the building with an actual concrete sealer to prevent moisture.
So it'd
Okay.
be power washing plus
Yes,
resurface.
yes, they're resurfacing the exterior of the
Okay,
building.
okay, great, thank you very much. Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Question regarding your FTEs. You have 20 listed on there. Have you maintained 20 right along? Do you have 20? How many do you have, and how is your recruitment retention? How is that?
We don't have any open positions now other than substitute cleaning positions, and those are hard to fill. They're not an on-call position, but they are, call as needed. So it becomes difficult. Actually just interviewed for I had 3 interviews scheduled 2 weeks ago, and only one person showed up. Seems to be a lot of how it's been happening for that position specifically. It's tough to get someone to come in here that, only can work when the phone rings, I guess. Makes it difficult, but, other than that, we're fully staffed. We have no current open positions at this point.
Any other questions, comments regarding buildings and grounds? Good information, I appreciate it. I'm not seeing or hearing any, so, all right. Appreciate that. We are moving to number next, airports.
Thank you, guys.
Airports. Thanks, Josh.
Good morning.
Good morning. For the
Shannon.
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Shannon Fisher, Manager of Airports.
Brian Bates, Assistant Manager Airports.
Thank you very much. All right. Go ahead, Shannon, or whomever, and
Yeah, we'll just,
get us going on the summary.
I guess I'll just overall say, what we did this year was, we appreciate the budget that we have right now. And we try to stay within that. I don't think we've gone over in the last couple of years, so we've kept it the same that it was in the past. The only increases that I believe that have gone up are employee, benefits and, employee costs. So anywhere where you'll see a line item that was increased, we tried to lower it in another area. So we knew we had a couple expenses coming up next year. One was under subscriptions. We're looking to get this Part 139 app, which will help our guys do their daily inspections. So we lowered, I believe, our building maintenance, to be able to get that and stay within budget. So, I don't think you'll see a lot of changes on ours this year other than things I can't control, the employee costs. Do you want to add anything to
Sure.
it?
All right,
And
good, I
that's for
appreciate that.
Both airports.
Yep,
We did-
yep.
We kept that model.
Okay, okay. So just go a little deeper. I don't understand what, you mentioned subscriptions. Tell me what that is.
Yep, so.
Dumb that down for me, please.
Nope, just one of the things we knew we wanted to get next year, so when the FAA comes out and does their annual Part 139 inspection, they go through 365 days minus the weekends, so whatever that comes out to be, of their daily inspections on paper. They
Okay.
look and go. So, most airports, were probably way behind the times, but, have an app that we can use to go out, the guys will go out and it's GPS based, they click the light and, not only does it say that the light is out that day, that will keep track, is there a bigger issue for work orders and whatnot than just one light being out? Has it been out for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or, does it go out intermittently for the last year? So it'll be able to maintain all of those and it tells you exactly which light it is, where it's at. So we've looked into this for the last couple of years and we were able to, move our budget around to lower some things in other area to be able to add that in for next year. It'll be a really great,
Yeah,
thing to have for,
Okay.
for the guys.
sure,
Efficiency, I guess,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, good, good. Other items, questions, comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Shannon,
Yep.
you explained that your point ones are, you're seeing vacancy savings, employee turnover savings, et cetera. Yet your overtime pay is going up. I assume those things are related, but could you give us a little more detail on that?
Sure. Last year, our overtime went up quite a bit. It's all Brian over here now. But we had an employee who was out for 8 months throughout the winter season, so he's able to cover those his position while he's out. So we didn't bring on a full-time or temporary employee throughout the winter. We just had our guys cover it, which ended up being an increase in our overtime last year, and likely it just depends on the weather, so we try to make sure we're encompassing that and not going over, but if we have a busy snow season, and then there's gonna be a little bit more overtime. In addition, we had the solar eclipse this year. Those are things that that just came up. That wasn't something we knew really before, well, I guess we did know, but we didn't plan for during budget season last year to have a 2-day, event that year. So that was probably some of the overtime was in that.
So that helps understand why
2024.
last year and this year, your overtime has been up, but you're projecting it to go up even higher next year. So what's the rationale there?
Thought we stayed the same.
I thought we stayed the same too with our overtime, but maybe if we increased it a little, we might have brought it down, but
It was up 2,000.
it was up a couple $1,000.
And wage increases too.
And Pierre, that's the top of page 13 of 22, is that,
Yes.
okay,
Sir.
for anybody else?
I think that was just to, likely we've gone through what we've already used this year in the beginning of it, and then we still have snow season coming up in the following year. We just wanted to make sure that it was covered, so.
Well, we're not planning for another eclipse next year.
No, but we are planning for fly-ins, air shows, things like that, so we wanna make sure we
Okay,
cover those things as well.
that's good to know, yes. Okay.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Questions, comments? Yes, Dan, please.
Question, on line item, it's fuel or gas in the,
The 4210?
yeah,
Mhm.
it just is going down, so that
Mhm.
over the last few years has really fluctuated a lot. What is
Mhm.
that particular?
So when we first came on board, I think it was, or when I first came on board, it was up a lot. I think just the utilities in general.
Yeah.
But then I believe there's a projection that's used in the finance department
Yeah.
that they kind of extrapolated out to see how that plays out, and that's,
And it's based on price and usage. I was just curious if our usage fluctuates that much.
Any-
It does,
yeah.
a lot of it's weather dependent,
Yeah.
you know, if we're rolling snow equipment, it eats a lot of fuel, you know. Mowers are the same every year, I mean, pretty much mow
actually,
nonstop.
I think
really
this
are.
gas one
I
though
understand
is
the
not,
gas
this is utility,
Oh,
right?
oh, I'm sorry.
So it depends on what tenants we have in too. We try to offload that on, that's a bad word, I feel like offload, but you know what I mean? If there's a tenant in there, that's something that they'll end up paying too.
Sure.
But I think they just used the projection of what it's been for the last 3 years, and you'll probably have to answer that one, Chad, because I'm guessing.
Well, I mean, being more, the improvements you've
Efficient
made
and-
and stuff like that, the efficiencies are helping
The only other,
decrease the usage.
sure. The only other question I have is, we have an increase in contractual costs for restaurant lease, and is that the full 11,000 increase? And are we going to, we don't tentatively have a tenant in there
For revenue.
right now. Is that amount gonna be okay, depending on when that ever is? put in?
So we
Okay.
just took the lease that you guys have seen and the dollars that we've talked about, and I gave those, Shaddy projected those over the next 12 months, so,
Yeah,
yeah, for,
but we don't know when that's gonna officially take place either,
Mhm.
so that's all. That number could,
sure, and
Could
we
hit
also
or
don't know what other
not
tenants we
hit.
might get next year, or what
Sure.
we rent out, or, Luscombe, will that be rented again? So,
yep,
we're trying to project the best we can for 2025.
yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Dan. Anything else? Anything else for the airport budgets 2025? Seeing or hearing none, I'd like to thank you both for presenting to us this morning.
Thank you.
Appreciate
for having
that.
us.
Appreciate that. We are moving right along. Next, we are talking carts. There's anybody, there is, yes. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Michelle Westfall. I'm the Senior Project Coordinator at CARTS. Do we just,
Thank you for joining us, Michelle. Appreciate that. Yeah, so just go ahead and give some highlights that you have in your tentative budget, please.
okay, well, personnel, services are up. Obviously, it's contractual, is some of it. Some of it was increased for our tourism route a little bit. We're hoping to do a little bit more of the tourism route next year. We did increase some of that for the NeoGov training because we have to pull our drivers off the road and bring them in special to do the trainings. And then I did put a little bit in there to have a driver meeting next year, where we can pull all the drivers in together and have one big meeting. We haven't done that in a few years, and we do like to do that annually, and we haven't. We've been trying to do it all with memos, and it does work better if you get them all in one room and have a meeting. Let's see. Our point for the contractuals, we had an increase in IT charges and the software cost for our Route Match software, which is our scheduling program that we use. It goes up every year. It is what it is. We are putting an RFP out for a new scheduling program, so hopefully we can get something new, and the costs could potentially go down, probably not for next year, it won't be implemented, but in years coming up. There was an increase in the wireless data for the tablets. Through Verizon, it just is an increase, and the parts for the buses, we increased that a little bit. It's just, everything has gone up. Fuel prices, our fuel for the buses have gone up. And then the employee benefits, that was just in the contractual, and then the cost has gone up for that as well. If we skip down to revenue, if you notice, there is a large change to our departmental income, and that is because there was a shift in how they're billing for our long-term managed care. They used to bill that through each individual insurance. Now they're billing it all through Medicaid. So that all got shifted down to the shared services. While there was an increase in that, sadly, we have not gotten all of our rides back through medical answering services. So there was a decrease in the number of rides that we've gotten from the long-term managed care. And then the other one that has an increase is our STOA, and that is because ridership is increased. So by saying that, I need to explain that ridership is decreased for the long-term managed care, which is billed at $28. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. At $28 a trip. But we are selling more monthly tickets to like students and individuals who are riding the city bus. So our ridership is increased because they can take these monthly tickets, which are $54 for like a monthly ticket, and they can ride as many times as they want. So we can, each ride we count, we can bill to STOA, so then our STOA increases. So ridership is up, but the revenue for Medicaid is down because we are not getting all our long-term managed care rides that we should be getting because.
Michelle, please explain STOA.
STOA, it's our state operating assistance.
Thank you.
We get 68 cents per passenger and $1.15 a mile from New York State DOT.
We love acronyms.
Sorry.
That'd be WLA. We love. NM, never mind.
Got it.
GI,
Yep.
YUP.
Um,
Can I ask a question?
you can?
I was asked this the other day. To ride a carts bus, so it's $54 a month?
Well, our prices are all different. So for the city bus, I believe it's $54.50 for a monthly ticket for a non-senior.
So if I lived in Fredonia, New York, and I want to take the carts bus, can I take it anywhere in the county for a certain price per month?
Yes, it would depend where you were going. We go by zones, and zones are townships.
Okay,
So like if you're coming from Jamestown, from Fredonia to Jamestown, it's 4 zones. And I don't have all the prices memorized, but it would be a 4-zone ticket that you would have to purchase.
probably everything's online.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
But if you needed to know, you could just call our dispatchers. They really do have it memorized.
they asked me about going from Fredonia to Mayville to,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, I'm sure it's quite affordable and it's worth the,
Yes, yes,
And
it
they-
is.
they didn't hop right on when I said that, but I'm sure they, yeah.
Yes, and if it's somebody who's afraid to do it, we do have a mobility manager who will ride with people the first time to train them how to do it.
Oh, okay.
Like elderly or kids, or, she's done a lot of the, people who have come into our county, the refugees who can't speak English. She's gone and with, I think it's Journey's End, and they've trained them how to ride the bus.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you.
Michelle, you had mentioned ridership is up. Do you know or have rough numbers or an idea, percentage-wise, of what they are up? And if that's year to year, you're talking, or, you know, not
Yes,
quoting
I
you on
had her
this.
text it to me, because I forgot to bring it.
Okay,
So, not for this year, but, so before, COVID hit, we were at, per year for 2019, we were at 193,814 trips. And then COVID hit, and we dropped down to 123,800, or 184 trips. 2021, we went up to 130,398. 2022, we went to 137,737, and then in 2023, we were up to 168,236.
okay, so, and you say that's a trip?
Per, yeah, that's a one-way trip.
Oh, okay, that answers, okay.
That's
a
every
one-way
time
trip.
somebody gets on the bus.
Okay, perfect.
And we can count, transfers too, so if they have to transfer from one bus to another bus, we can count that as a
Okay.
trip. So that's what we can bill to for our state operating assistance, that's what we get, 68 cents for each of those.
Okay, and I'm getting into the weeds here, because I know this is a budget hearing, but who tracks those? The drivers, or is that
Yes.
done just via ticketing, or?
No, the driver tracks those, we have our route match system.
Okay, so that's an online system that they deal with?
They have a tablet on the bus.
Okay, fair enough.
And they put it in there, and then quarterly I run a report and fill out the paperwork and send it in to New York State, and then quarterly they send us a check.
Okay.
And then in February, once a year, they take all the money that's left in our pool, and then they have some formula in New York State that they divide the money up, and whatever's left in that pool, we get a cleanup payment, it's called, and we get one lump sum that they pay us.
Okay,
And I have to divide, for New York, for DOT, I have to divide it out between the fixed route, the deviated rural route, and the paratransit, which is the door-to-door service.
okay. Questions, comments for Michelle?
Sure, your question just made me want to ask, what's our capacity utilization? So I think you'd measure that if you had 163,000 person trips, how many seats were moving at the same time? In other words, what's your average occupancy in a vehicle?
We have, our buses hold 16 passengers.
And typically have how many people in them? I mean, what I see up in the North County is the answer is 2 or 3.
Well, it depends what type of service you have.
Sure.
And it depends what time of day it is. Like, first thing in the morning, people going to work, our buses are full. And then we have our dial-a-ride or our demand response buses that are curb to curb or door to door. They're specialized service, so we'll pick you up at your house and take you to your appointment, and there usually is just 1 or 2 people on those buses at a time. Because it's what we have to offer. If you offer the city route service with the American with Disabilities Act or ADA, you have to offer a complimentary paratransit service, so you have to offer that. So within the city of Dunkirk and Fredonia, within 3/4 of a mile of a city fixed route system, you have to offer the paratransit service. So you will see those running with just 1 or 2 people on it.
Yeah, it's just, I mean,
I can't answer
you're
that.
probably having to design your fleet for peak demands.
Mhm.
And that's, so there's, what's your capacity utilization at peak? And then what's your capacity utilization at average, and what does that suggest to you in terms of your asset mix?
Mhm. Yeah, I
mean,
don't
how do you
have-
do all of that?
I don't have those numbers. I mean, we've had these honestly, we've had these routes forever, and, we actually have an RFP that's gonna be going out to have somebody to come in and do this for us and make sure that our routes are running efficiently. We have money from the state.
Okay.
So we are going to be looking at that, and we also, I just got an email from New York State DOT that they are having, we're having a meeting maybe in 2 weeks, and they might actually be able to do that without us putting out an RFP. So we have to have the meeting before we can do the RFP, but they might be doing that individually. DOT might be doing that for all the rural transits, so we're just waiting to see. And then I might be able to answer your question better.
Well, it sounds like you've been doing your routes forever, and you use
Yeah.
the same equipment mix forever, so you've got something in your budget to look at that,
Yes.
which I think answers my question.
Dan?
Sure, I have a few questions. Personnel, you have 32. Where do you stand today, and how have recruiting and retention been? I know, does CART's system experience the same sort of shortfall for bus drivers as all the other places that have bus drivers, such as the schools and, that sort of thing?
Yes. We have are 22, 75% full-time drivers. So we have those drivers who have benefits, and then the rest of them are all like part-time subs that fill in. So we're lucky that with our part-time subs, they're all retired and they just want something to do. So they have no interest in leaving us to go to a school and drive. So we're able to retain them. Like, we have some of those drivers who've been with us forever. And then, we do have the ones that we hire, and that, like we hired somebody just the other day, and we got her all trained. She came with a license, we got her trained, we were just ready to put her out there, and then honestly, first student offered her $27 an hour, and she was gone. So we do have a problem retaining, because we don't pay what, the private carriers can pay. But, we try to entice them with the retirement and the benefits and the,
Sure.
so yes, we do have a problem with retention. That's why we have as much overtime as we do, because the ones that are willing to work.
Sure, well, and I suppose in since you had a lot of vacancy savings last year in the department, so you paid a little overtime, but it didn't equate to what you were saving in the vacancy, I suppose. But, a couple other questions that were just in the detail was the insurance. Insurance has kind of gone up and down. It's going up about 18,000 this year. It's on page 19 of 22, and it's the line item A, 5630, 5625. It's, is it just rate increases? Is it, what is that insurance line?
Isn't that from Dennis?
I can help with that question. So that's our allocation of the liability insurance premium. So, you know, those will fluctuate year to year just based on the number of vehicles or other equipment that is allocated for a particular department.
Have you gotten more
And-
buses?
We have
And
the
did
trolleys.
See an increase in our auto premiums overall, so if that would, you know, based on the number of vehicles that they have, the insurance would go up.
It could be because we have the trolleys now too,
That-
maybe.
Yeah.
That would add to it.
Mhm.
So this would probably be more of a norm moving forward too. what that sounds. And then my other one was just on the fuel, the next couple lines down from that is, you know, you're raising it up about 35,000. Do you know where you're at this year for usage? And you stated in the summary that the fuel prices is going up. Are they up much from last year? I didn't
don't
really think
remember
that
what
the
we
prices have
budgeted
changed
last year.
much, but,
Last year was 3-something last year.
what do we use? I don't know our
It's
numbers. so-
$2.96 for gas this year, and $3.59 for diesel.
What did we
And that
budget
was
last year
in
for
comparison
gas?
to last year?
I think it was over $3 for gas last year.
So gas went down, right? So but your usage is going up, or why are you increasing it? I just wanna get behind that, why,
Because you have the extra routes.
Well, we have the tourism routes this year.
It's in the
so
summer.
it's the new routes,
Mhm.
so you're just gonna be using more. It's not really necessarily the cost
No.
for that one, it's just the usage. So fuel increases meaning
Yeah,
consumption.
yes.
Right.
Good.
Yes,
Thanks,
sorry.
Dan. Anything else for the cards budget?
No. I'm kind of back at, do you have a data, your cost per passenger mile?
I do, not with me, but I do, because we have to do it yearly we have to do our annual report for the state, so I could get that for you.
Okay. Because I was taking the total budget dividing by 163,000 segments, and I came up with, I think, $28 a segment. Wow. And, you know, that's, if somebody's coming to work in Westfield from Fredonia, that's $54 a day to get them to and from work. And,
That could potentially be right, but I would have to
okay,
check my annual report and see.
but per passenger mile, then you can work it from there.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
again, in the detail on page 18 of 22, other supplies, account 5625. Up and down this year through June, $26. And we're projecting a 207% increase in budget, up to $6,400. Wonder what's driving that?
I'm sorry, which one was that?
This is account 5625. I'm sorry, 5625, 4190.
4190.
Other supplies.
About the middle of the page.
Computers.
Oh, computers. Is that the one that,
2 laptops that you have
oh,
the grant money.
we're
coming
getting
from.
2 laptops for the grant, with grant money, and then the computers that IT tells me that I need to get. This year I didn't need any computers, I didn't have to replace any desktops, so I didn't have any this year. And then I did get, money through a grant to get 2 laptops this
Wouldn't
year.
that fall under the 2 lines above that, which is computer software supply?
This is what IT told us.
No,
the-
the software is.
That's
just
strictly
that, it's
software.
just the software.
So equipment falls into other supplies.
Correct, anything under $1,000.
Okay,
Correct. If it's under $1,000 per unit.
okay. Thank you.
Thanks for that clarification.
Some of that getting reimbursed then through the grant?
yes, I have $2,000 for the laptops. So whatever the laptops cost, it'll be less 10% will be the local share.
All right, very good. Anything else? Anything else, committee? All
And
right,
I did show that in the revenue, the laptops.
perfect, perfect. If nothing else, Michelle, thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information.
Thanks, Michelle.
Michelle does a wonderful job. Thank you.
Yes.
Good box.
Next on the agenda is our parks. Good morning.
Good morning. Drew Rogers, Deputy Director of Public Facilities Engineering.
Thanks for being here this morning, Drew.
Thanks for having me. So the Parks Division is obviously the maintenance for the county-owned parks, the overland trails, waterway trail, and the reforestation properties. For 2025, we're proposing a half of FTE increase for the employees. And what that is we previously had a position that was split 50-50 with transportation and with parks. And so there is more of a need for this individual with parks and to improve safety, because it just, Parks Division goes down to just the maintenance supervisor in the wintertime. So to have another full-time person with them to help maintain the equipment and do all the off-season work of rebuilding picnic tables or whatever needs to be done. That was the increase there for FTE. The expenses for the department, we're projecting to go up about $65,000 compared to last year. That is primarily due to, again, switching that one position. There's also some anticipated equipment needs for the year, just some replacement equipment that's needed for the maintenance work. Another increase was the pickup truck is in need of replacement. That's used by the parks crews that pulls the trailers and used every day, pretty much for that division. And that's gonna enter into the lease program that we're currently part of with the enterprise program. And then just a little increase in contractuals with a gatekeeper contract. What we do is have a contract with residents that live nearby the overlook parks, and they get a stipend to open the park gates and the restrooms in the mornings and then close them down at dusk. And then the revenue for the division is projected to stay the same, and that's primarily through the county occupancy tax. That's $150,000, and then a little extra in there, just anticipated donations that we've seen through the overlook parks. So that would be the increase with the local share, with the revenue being the same. It's just our projected increase in expenses.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. How many gatekeepers do we have?
Two.
Two, okay, all
Yeah,
right.
one for each
Okay.
overlook.
Okay. All right, very good. I didn't know that, so that's good information. I'm sure I'm the only one, but, questions, comments for Drew? Or the team regarding the parks budget?
Yes,
Like
Mr.
details
Chairman.
of that start on the bottom of page 20. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Detail, page 21, top of the page, other equipment, and other equipment going up $8,000. In the last couple of years, 22, you spent $1,000, last year nothing, this year nothing. Can you give us more
previous-
detail?
Yeah, the previous couple of years, there was some ARPA funds used for equipment purchases. And this year, just with the age of some of the equipment is what we're proposing to replace again through the budget.
Any idea what type of equipment we're talking about?
Yeah.
Shovels, rakes? and-
Yeah, we've got a two-man auger, a portable generator, a pull-behind brush chopper for the
Okay.
ATV, leaf blowers, push mower, and I think a couple of string trimmers would make up the equipment that we're looking for.
Thank you. And then under contractual, you've got other supplies going up, more than doubling.
They're altogether for the equipment, that was the list. It just depends on how much they cost as to what category.
Well, this would, under contractual, it'd apparently be leased equipment or leased materials. Purchased, I guess.
You're talking the 4190 account?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's any of the equipment that he had on his list that's under the $1,000 threshold for that account is what's being purchased in that. Do you have?
Yeah, so just to get into the detail, the 3,700 other equipment over 5,000 is just for the pull-behind brush chopper. And the other equipment, 1,000 to 5,000, is the two-man auger and the portable generator.
Okay.
And then the other supplies, am I looking at the right one? Other supplies, less than 1,000, is the replacement of the leaf blower, push mower, and string trimmers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Where'd your ATV go?
Got stolen.
Really?
Yeah, we had a vandalism Memorial Day weekend this year.
Well, actually, that's an interesting answer. I was really wondering where was it in that over 5,000 category?
Oh, that's just for the brush chopper. Oh, we already have the
That's already-
ATV.
Already been replaced, okay. Interesting, all right. So then my other question is, do we really have to increase the FTEs by half a person?
Well, it's for the, like I said, the off-season work, where they clear the parking lots for the trails. Been able to, the last few years, actually do a little work on the trails when weather allows, but, we felt safety-wise, when there's just one person that was
There's been times
working
there's
in the
one person
parks.
out working out there on the parks, operating a chainsaw or operating a piece of equipment. He's out there in the middle of nowhere by himself. Feel real safe with that. And another thing is too, if one man's off on vacation, there's still somebody there to take care of things also.
All right, but nevertheless, it's I mean, at the end of the day, in the larger scheme of things, it's FTE that really drive cost across the entire budget. And so, we press on all of them.
It's an increase in parks and a
but it's a
decrease in
decrease in
the highway.
So it washes between the two. Okay.
So dropping down to account 4590, other contractual, going up $4,600.
That's the increase with the gatekeepers contract, and then, we increased based off of, I believe that was we're gonna need the septic pumping, and we've had port johns, basically,
Yes.
from time to time.
Septic work at the,
So I just wanted to get some clarity there that this is not all for the gatekeepers.
Not all of it, no.
Thank you.
How much do we pay the gatekeepers?
Right now, there's a contract that changed to $20 a day for the work, and the other one's at 10. And we're guessing that when that one gets renegotiated, they'll probably want it to be $20 a
and
day.
that's due at the end of November, the renewal on the second one.
Yes.
It's still pretty
Times
cheap.
184 days.
Yeah, it's still pretty cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Send one of the kids up there, go shut the gate.
Taking a step back to the pickup truck, just a question more maybe administratively. So we're getting rid of an older pickup truck that we own. We're going into the lease program for a new one. So does state bid price have anything to do with leasing at all anymore? Or is that a thing of the past? I have no idea. I just remember we used to,
No.
Go
well,
ahead.
Katie's been always wants to put most of our vehicles in that leasing program.
yeah.
So we're not looking at purchasing it outright.
Okay, so then maybe this is a question for the, for Kitty or, and this is just maybe for my education, not so much the budget, so I apologize, but so the purchase through state bid was, quite a bit less, is my understanding, than a normal, me purchasing my own personal use vehicle. So is there still a discount for doing that through the lease program? Or I guess maybe the better way to ask that is if somebody in 2 sentences could tell me what is the big advantage of the county going with leased vehicles?
In my opinion, there is a long-term, there's several long-term benefits to having, just think of it as a cash flow perspective. We're not putting the outlay of cash up front when we're purchasing a vehicle. We're paying just the lease costs every year. It reduces our insurance over time because we're in maintenance costs, and allows us to have a steady budget rather than spikes in cash flow from time to time when we're purchasing vehicles. There's additional safety features on the vehicles if you're using newer vehicles. We do lease through Enterprise, who has an expertise in knowing when is an opportune time to turn over the vehicle, which has a lot shown. We've gotten equity back, which we can put back into our new leases. So it's not something that you analyze in a 1-year period, that you look at it over the 5-year, 10-year period to see the returns. I'm not gonna say that I think it's going to necessarily save drastic amounts of money, but it's at least a break even, in my opinion. Now that people have difference of opinions on this subject, but from my perspective, it makes a lot of sense for us.
Okay, thank you.
There's a lot of ancillary, factors other than, just, what's our lease payment versus,
Yeah.
purchasing.
Right, I understand that. Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. And then just follow up to that, the length of the vehicle we would anticipate leasing this pickup truck for. Do we know that
Yeah,
at this point?
our
It's
typical lease.
based on mileage too.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I think somewhere around 30,000 miles.
Oh,
that we could
okay.
turn
Yeah.
in.
Okay. all
And,
right.
and each lease that we do is spec'd out, so it just depends on what the use is,
Mhm.
and then we get a quote and go from there. So we're not locked into, we have the ability to, do our own
Yeah.
specifications
Okay.
for the vehicles.
Okay. I appreciate that. So New York State doesn't even play a part in that like they would in purchase for, okay, great.
I mean, there are instances where we still do make a decision to purchase a vehicle versus leasing, so we do look at that, those scenarios as they come up, what's, more effective.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Scudder I'm trying to read if he's on the edge of his seat. Maybe he's not, so, okay.
Wow.
I heard him clear his throat like he was.
Well, yeah, actually, I did want to just make a comment on the Parks Department. I'm now on the Parks Commission, and my eyes have been opened up a whole lot. Before, when I thought of parks, it was like parks, but parks include our Overlook Park, the Lundsman, miles and miles of trails. We do waterways. It's incredible what's going on under the heading of parks. And as far as equipment goes, it isn't an every year ask but the way I kind of envision it, and correct me if I'm wrong, we got a little bit of equipment that's used a lot. So it's the type of thing, you and I have a chainsaw at home and we use it once every 4 months for 20 minutes. These are chainsaws that are going out every day and running and running and running and running. So, not a whole lot of, we're not asking for backhoes but there's just like I said, a little bit of equipment used a lot. So, I'm not defending the ask, I'm just recognize that I'm kind of seeing it more. And as far as bringing in the 0.5, we're trying to insert some energy into parks. Parks brings a lot of people into the county. Attendance at the trails and the parks is up, documented by people signing in. We run out of brochures, which is a good sign because that means people are coming and using them. And we've got some plans going forward that are pretty exciting, and I've just got a renewed excitement for the parks, especially, like I said, being on the commission and seeing the day-to-day, and there's a lot that goes on there, and I really appreciate what all these guys are doing, so
Great.
that's what I got.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. Anything else for Drew or team on parks while we are here? I'm not seeing or hearing any on that. Drew, thank you very much for giving us your time this morning. Good information. We are to the point of a break, but it looks like, according to my time, we're about a half hour early. Can anyone tell me if engineers, highway fund, machinery fund, the next group are here, or will we still be waiting for them? You're going to be sticking around?
I'll be here.
So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You might want to do forestry, that's the next tab after parks as well, before we move on.
Oh, I'm just looking at, okay, then that's, I didn't see that on my handout this morning, so, okay, that's my bad. So yes, let's jump into forestry. So since you're sticking around, we'll, do a couple of those right and just decide when we want to do the other break, so go ahead, with forestry.
Okay, forestry is basically for the reforestation properties. The expense is the property taxes for those, for the reforestation properties. The revenue total that's there is anticipated gas well royalties. It's just I guess a hopeful projection of what we may get from the gas well. And the local share, obviously the difference between the two, 18,500. All those numbers unchanged from 2024.
All right.
And Drew, perhaps you can renew an old conversation about why these reforestation properties are taxable.
From what my understanding is, they're taxable because they can generate income through the timber sales of when they're forested.
So even though they're government-owned, county government-owned, because they can generate income, they are taxable.
That's my understanding.
Shame on us for making any money.
Thank you for that explanation, as hard as that has been for me to believe over the years. It's a good information for the new legislators. Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate that. The cadence of your question spoke volumes, Mr. Chairman. It's like, so I appreciate it. That was funny. So yes, understand. Questions on forestry? Question on forestry, very straightforward. Not much to that sheet. Comments, questions? Okay. So now I am out of order. So my next tab is showing DPF admin, then going into engineering. Is that who? I want to just make sure I'm correct. Okay, so Drew, you are speaking to.
I'll speak to them all.
You're going to speak to them all.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Then let's continue on then.
Okay.
DPF admin, please.
DPF admin, okay. So that's the administrative staff, for the DPF. That's the director, safety coordinator, and the administrative staff that did not become part of the finance, when that change happened. And then included in that budget is also the associated department expenses. So the FTE count is 3.5, which is staying the same as previous years. The expense total represents a decrease of 23,000, almost 24,000 from 2024, and is primarily due to a change in the insurance charges. And then the revenue total has increased about $267,000 due to the investment earning projections. And so overall, the local share is a minus 6,000 and a decrease of about 291,000 from 2024.
Very good. Appreciate that. Questions, comments on that? Yes. Dan.
Sale of county maps, it's more curiosity. It's not a lot of money what we're doing with it. What is it, and what are you doing, what is that?
It's just the foldable highway map. I believe they sell for $1 a piece, and they've been around for quite a while.
I'm surprised that's all that's sold of them.
How many do we sell a year, Sam?
The sheriff normally buys 20, that's about it.
Are they out?
About 8 years ago, I had a constituent wanted 2 of them, so I bought 2 of them, or paid cash.
Where are they?
We have them at the office.
Don't they sell them in the clerk's office too?
I think they're a buck a piece, I'll buy a bunch.
It just is curious, it's something that
They're nice too.
I probably could be promoted a little more.
Yeah.
In sense too, I think I have one in my glove box, and it is handy, and I'm kinda old school, I'll look at a map, and I guess, but it is, certain things are going on the wayside, a sense of, and everyone can pull up a map on their device of some sort, right? and
Yeah.
Look. But, maps, and we do have a large, Amish community, right, that would utilize maps, and, they don't, some of them are getting smart too, they have some devices that can be pulled up. And you are utilizing technology in the sense of that smart technology, is what I mean.
I know
So,
what you mean.
But, I was just, maps.
Can you even get them reprinted for a buck?
Not these, so these are pretty nice. but-
Probably not.
Probably, there's a case of them in the basement.
Yeah, like, I'll put my hand up for the
That's-
case.
Yeah.
Like
That's
the mouse
pretty
got
much
in
it.
probably.
Yeah.
Those are 50 cents.
Thank you.
It's something that always has been.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a question. Drew, you mentioned the safety coordinator. The county also has a safety coordinator or manager in the person of the EMS director. Could you explain how your safety coordinator coordinates, collaborates with the EMS director for the rest of the county?
You know that more?
That's, Tom Nelson, he takes care of our, drug and alcohol program, and then, health and safety personnel issues that may come along throughout the year.
Okay.
And I know that he does communicate with Noel as far as fire drills and stuff like that Noel takes care of now.
Okay.
I believe also fire extinguishers, Tom oversees and takes care of.
Yeah, he takes care of just our departmental needs.
For all of DPF, buildings and grounds, carts, airports, all of that,
Right.
okay? And then Noel would take care of the rest of the county facilities and employees. Thank you. I just wanted that clarification. And also looking at your insurance cost in your budget. This is on page 4 of 10. Your insurance cost, which your 24 budget is $43,000, is going down to $548 next year. Wow, great job, but how'd you do it?
Good question. I'm gonna look over here, over here.
Which are we on the accounts you asked me about the other
Yeah.
day, Chad?
5460.
Yeah, I think it was just, when I did the schedule, I not transposed, but I entered one thing on one line when it should have been on another line. So there's another account where it shows it's increase. So we will just, the total amount budgeted between the two accounts won't change. It'll just be, we need to move it to the other department.
You'll
Well, I don't
see-
see an increase in that amount anywhere.
You'll see
5110.
increases in 5110 and
Different
The-
department.
Oh, different departments.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
and also an increase in DM 5130 as far as our accounts go.
So is that gonna change your, the bottom information, the local share portion for, just for that, or?
Not for DPF overall, it's just
in
moving
that
the cost from one
department.
department to another department, so I'll be bringing those changes to you for Friday.
Okay.
And just a note that I have, I don't know if I'm putting this in the form of a question or not. Use of money and property, so that the interest earnings in the revenue side for DPF admin, going from 170 to 436,000, a big jump. Is that a function of interest dividend rates, or is that a function of the amount that we have invested? I guess. And I don't know if that's more of a question for Kitty or
Yeah,
not.
those are the interest earnings, so we budget now based on what were the realized earnings in the last full year, so that was what we actually earned.
So that was similar to what we actually earned in 24? 2023?
2023, because we go by the last
Okay,
full year.
okay. That's exactly what I was asking. Thank you. Anything else for DPF admin?
What are your communications on, 5010 and 4240? Says this year you used 14,000, we budgeted 35,800.
You got the detail on that. Isn't that the fiber?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yep, it's the fiber optic lines. It's the fiber. It's,
You got the detail. You got the detail on it. Oh,
two fiber optic lines.
so 2 fiber optic lines and then is it the communication also for the department? And then also the communication telephone lines for the department?
Do you foresee completely needing all 35,000?
Well, the fiber, I believe the fiber are set, that's a fixed charge.
Yeah. The fiber that I can see is a fixed charge. And then the communication portion of that is just based off of the
The
trend.
way it's trending, as far as communication.
The fiber optics, is it new lines to the building that
Yeah.
you have to, have to cover the expense?
It's,
There.
yeah, it's,
highway terminals to the airport and.
It's Dunkirk hub to the Dunkirk airport, and then from Jamestown, Scob to DPF. So it's the fiber network for the county.
It's just been an ongoing project then for 2 years then?
That's actually a charge we get through IT.
As far as duration, I don't have the answer on that one.
I think those are just the charges associated with having
With
the
having
fiber.
it, it's gonna be an ongoing,
It's a
I guess my
recurring-
question, I mean, I don't know exactly how, to what point this 2024 actual amount is projected to, but, I mean, we're over 50% if we don't need all 35,000, I mean, that would be a place I think we could cut a little bit.
That 2024 number is through June of 2024. That's only half the,
30,000.
yes.
Okay, so it's not as bad as it looks then.
The other thing is, maybe they didn't do the work until at the end of the year or
Right.
something, so they might not expense it till the end or something.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Timing there. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Other questions, comments? TPF admin, not hearing or seeing any. Moving on. Engineering.
Okay, the engineering is the engineering staff, obviously, and it's for basically the highway and bridge program. The proposed FTE count is projected to be the same, 7.65. And then included with the engineering division and the employees, we do project some staff time to be allocated towards capital projects. The expense total, roughly 789,000, is an increase in the total, just under 24,000 compared to 2024. And this is largely due to the adjustments from the contract. I know there was benefits election change, and there was a change to the retirement fees projected for 2025. And in revenue, engineering, there is no revenue, so our local share then equals our expense total.
Okay, great, thank you. Questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to get on my soapbox for a moment, and I am
Certainly.
extremely appreciative of the county engineering staff. I think that we are very fortunate to have the skilled and experienced engineers on staff for the county roads, bridges, and buildings, et cetera. And given that in my district, we have a interstate bridge that's trying to be reconstructed, and all sorts of engineering questions about it, and all sorts of community concerns about that state bridge, I'm delighted that we don't have concerns with the maintenance of the county roads and bridges that are engineered and maintained extremely well. I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, noted
Thank you.
and appreciated, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good comments, good comments. Yes, Dan?
Question about personnel. The engineering department, you have had, where do you stand on current engineers? And, recruitment, retention type thing, I know in the years past, it's been a challenge to try to have, to fill positions. One is, to come to work with the county, sometimes private sector, especially in the engineering platform, pay comes into the situation. We always argue of, benefits and things of that nature, and just the nature of the work, but
Yeah.
how do we stand with?
We do currently have 2 open positions. We did lose somebody towards the end of summer to the private sector. His position was filled internally, but then we're going through the process of filling now that person's position. And that it just started to try to refill that position. I think that one will have pretty good success. The other open position is a position that we have that's 60% for engineering, 40% towards the landfill. We've been looking for a professional engineer to fill that role, and to date, we've been unsuccessful in filling that role. I know I've also been working with the environmental health, helping with their engineering needs while they were looking to fill a position, and I know they had some difficult times trying to fill that role as well. So at some point, I think we're gonna have to probably look at different options, decide whether we need to go forward with needing a professional engineer, or if we can tackle some of the needs with maybe not somebody with quite as much experience. But that particular position has been difficult to find people and to recruit people.
And really, it's probably gone on a couple years, hasn't it?
Yes. We've been looking this year for that position, and then, like I said, working with environmental health, it took probably close to 2 years to find a professional. And that position did have to change a little itself too, where they're gonna continue to work with me until they can obtain their license, which should be relatively quick.
Drew, to put this in a national perspective, when the federal government implemented the Infrastructure Act, billions of dollars was pouring into infrastructure projects throughout the county. Each one of those projects had to have a professional engineer working on it. So the demand for professional engineers skyrocketed as a result of the Infrastructure Act. And there aren't that many professional engineers being educated and certified every year to anywhere come close to meeting the demand. So
Correct.
what we're experiencing here in Chautauqua County is certainly not unique.
Correct.
No, and I just bring that point because I know the situation, I know the problem, and then also, here we are we're still budgeting for them. So we're gonna roll into another year with the same probably outcome of not being able to fill that position. So I think, it's important to consider how do we do that work in a different capacity and at what level, and also the strain it puts on the current individuals trying to cover that work as well. It just becomes difficult, and I agree with Pierre, we don't want that work to slip, either. Just because, it happens, when you're trying to do too much sometimes. So I think it's important to, just instead of working with the vacancy and covering it with the ones that are working, fill that other position somehow in a different matter. And that poses its own challenges, but I'm sure, working with our human resources department, we can get creative to try to cover that in the best way we can. So I just promote that.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Dan, for engineering. I'm flipping the page. Maintenance of roads.
Okay, maintenance of roads. This is the highway operations for the department. This is all the maintenance staff, all the supplies, all the stockpile. It's all out of the 3 facilities. We got Faulkner, Sheridan, and Sherman. And this is where we're going down the half of FTE that went to parks. So we're reduced by that in this budget, and we're at a 100.5 positions. The expense total, just north of 10.5 million, is an increase compared to the 2024 adopted budget, and this increase is largely due to we got some employee benefit retirement changes, just projected increased cost in supplies, and that includes the stockpile materials. And then this is where we also see the increase in the insurance charge that we discussed earlier. There's no anticipated revenue with maintenance of roads, so then the local share then equals our expense total.
And so, Drew, when that insurance increase gets corrected, the local share for this department will go down.
Yes.
And Drew, could you explain stockpile?
Yeah, stockpile is all the, basically our gravel stockpiles, riprap stone, pipe, culvert pipe, guide rail pieces, components, parts. That's it. I mean, that's basically what it is. You know, our gravel and
So you're
building
buying
supplies.
extra materials that you will not consume during the year? Is that what it comes down to?
Possibly, it's on hand for when we are doing a project. It gets taken out of stockpile, and then later charged to the project when it goes, when it leaves the yard.
So,
But
help me understand why through the first 6 months of this year, you spent $5,000 in stockpile, and it's gonna be $100,000 next year. I'm not easily following the transactions.
To date, as of today, they spent $123,000 for stockpile this year. So most of that gets charged out July, August, September timeframe as projects are worked on. So currently, the balance is expensed $123,000 this year for stockpile.
Okay, so Sam, they expensed $123,000. That means they purchased $123,000 of material that went into the stockpile.
Yep.
But then, as Drew was saying, when they issue that material to a job, it comes out of stockpile.
Yeah, it comes in through our inventory as an asset on the county books, and then when we issue it out, that's where we realize the expense through our inventory process. So it's treated in like it's a D445 asset account when we receipt it in and bring it in, and then when we charge it out, it goes first in, first out through the inventory process. It's kind of similar to how we do the road machinery parts as well.
Okay, so if we say the budget for next year is $100,000, that anticipates that we're gonna bring in $100,000 more material than we issue out to jobs?
Or that we may already have some of that on hand already. There's like some road signs year to year that are kept in as an asset, so it's not all stuff we're purchasing currently. It may be a couple of years old. Some of the Gabion baskets are 5, 6 years old at this
Okay,
point.
but material we have in inventory currently would not be an expense next year.
No.
It's an existing asset. Fred, you're struggling with me, aren't you?
Cash versus accrual?
Yes.
Okay, so just a question, how much money are you gonna spend buying this stuff? And then how much of it are you gonna sell to the other
Yes.
departments? And where do you reflect that in your books?
Well, this will all get reflected either through the highway, the parks. It all depends on who uses the stockpile.
So that's it going out, when it comes out of inventory, it's an expense.
Yep, it's expensive
But,
as we issue it. So if, like, let's say the parks department takes 20 tons
But I
of
think where the
gravel,
chairman's going is
parks
just,
ground maintenance would be charged at that time.
but the camel's nose under the tent is how much each year we actually buy and put into stock. Do we have that number?
I don't have that number with, I don't have that number here. Can probably get that number.
Yeah, we can get it
Yeah.
out of the D445 inventory account. That's where that number would be reflected.
And then that would answer your question, are we buying more each year or less? As
Well,
opposed to issuing it.
My impression is that this is a net number. So when we say our budget next year is $100,000, that's net of how much we buy less how much we issue to projects.
It would be an increase in inventory.
Increase in inventory, yes.
So then says the question, are we increasing our inventory by $100,000? I don't think so.
No,
No, 'cause then it would
so when we purchase the items, it goes on the balance sheet,
Yes.
okay? When we use the items, it becomes an expense. Because that's when they know what road, bridge, project to assign the expense to.
Okay, so it becomes an expense
And
to
it
the roads
lowers
or
the-
to the bridges But does it become an expense to stockpile?
Well, that's the account we used, the stockpile account.
So the expense could be buying more for anticipated projects. Also, if you know you're gonna do some creek restabilization in an area and you buy another $50,000 in, creek bank stabilization, old boulders, oversized rock or something, but maybe you don't use it. So you are gonna have an increase that particular year, cause you never did expense it out, cause you didn't do the project too. But do you have any projects that you're buying extra for if you're increasing it by 100, or is the cost of materials gone up, or replacing low replenished stockpile? I guess that's the question, if it's going up 100,000.
Well, the price of materials has definitely gone up. And there's a little change in,
Yeah, there was a change, in some of the supervision of the highway shops. Initially, the Sherman shop and the Sheridan shop did not really use the stockpile, bring it into inventory and issue it out. With the changeover in the district supervision there, they are now operating more out of the stockpile account than the previous supervisors at those districts. So that's part of the reason you're seeing this increase as well, too. That was something that was happening when I was still there last year. There had been kind of a changeover in Sherman, and now I believe there's also been a changeover in Sheridan. So instead of seeing more reflected, like under operating supplies 4110, you're seeing more under 4680. That's where the difference would be.
Okay, I'm a little less confused, but I'll yield.
All right, thank you, thank you.
But I take that to say that Sherman, or part of it was running on a cash basis and somebody else was running on an accrual basis.
Yeah, we were, like, one of our main shops is like Faulkner, which had the biggest of the pit areas, was bringing in more gravel. They have more people running on rain days. That's a good day to bring gravel in to use out on a future day, so we're not hauling on a good weather day, basically. So that's kind of the example. We bring it in, 3 days later, we may use it, but they may have not have reflected it exactly that way. It just depended on the district supervisor. So there's been a little bit more of a change of running it through the inventory accounts, instead of running it just direct expense.
Anything else regarding maintenance of roads? We're gonna keep on to pavement marking.
pavement markings is the road striping paint supplies. It's the white and yellow paint and then the glass beads that go on for the reflectivity. No change from previous year, $450,000 expense, no revenue for that work, and then, so then the local share equals that expense.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments? Pretty straightforward, simple. Don't want to cut anybody off. Before we move on to capital projects.
How many
Go ahead, Dan,
complaints
I'm
this
sorry.
year from stuck on paint for the vehicles? How big's that complaint department? That stuff doesn't come off. And if you accidentally cross the line after they painted it, I'm sure you probably get a few disgruntled people.
Yeah, we've had a few.
Yeah, that stuff, you have to take a grinder to it sometimes, if it's on there. Good stuff.
Are you
Probably,
speaking by personal knowledge,
yeah.
firsthand?
Old lady, not me, but an old lady had crossed the line and it was all over a brand new car she just bought. What do you do, you know?
That's why I always buy yellow cars.
Yellow car.
If you buy a map though, it shows on there what roads are,
That's right, you could avoid the county road. New paint.
that's more of a state problem than a county.
All right, moving on to capital projects.
This represents the capital highway and bridge projects, and this is largely funded through the funding programs from the state. We've got the CHIPS program, Pave New York, and Pave Our Potholes program. And we generally design the program to match our funding. So with a local share that's utilized for the surface treating program. So this year, Not a huge change projected from 2024. We've got the expense total, $8,887,536, and that represents a small increase that we saw in funding from CHIPS. And so the revenue is made up of those programs, plus the DMV fees, and then fees that we see from issuing overweight permits. And the difference between the two, the local share, 750,000. Again, as I mentioned, that's utilized with the surface treating program. And that is how we operate on the capital projects for both bridge and highway.
Very good. Thank you, Drew.
Drew, in the past, we've had some concerns about the Pave Our Potholes program, about how some of the requirements were impractical. How's that funding working out for you now?
It works well. It's, the title's misleading. To pave our potholes, it's not for maintenance. It's for repaving a road. And, not necessarily a full reconstruction of a road, but, it's not just, go out and do a couple patches or anything like that. It's a full project, and, the funding levels have been working pretty well. We've done some pretty larger projects the last several years. Previously, we had to look at breaking into shorter segments, or maybe, not doing as in-depth of a project as maybe we would like. And with these, like this added program within the last couple of years, we've been able to kind of stretch that a little bit farther and do larger projects versus having to break that up in, going back year over year to the kind of the same stretch of roads.
So when the driving public sees one or two potholes in a road, and they think, well, you're getting this funding for patching those potholes, they don't understand that that funding doesn't mean that we can address those particular roads unless the condition of the road warrants a major reconstruction.
Right.
Yep. Thank you. Just wanted to do a little public information there.
Yes, good information. Other questions, comments, capital projects? Dan?
Yeah, sure. Your personnel for the road maintenance and construction, where do you currently stand with vacancies? And same sort of question, retention and positions that, people staying within the department, are we competitive, the same sort of question line.
Well, for the first time in several years, we're full, right?
We're currently full.
We're full.
On the highway, and that has helped. Recently, we have started the CDL program. Our in-house person, Todd Wisman, is an in-house employee, and we have been able to recruit people that are non-CDL holders and get them in and get them trained and get them their license, and are able to put them in the system. It's worked very well. I think we have put, since we have started the program last year, I think we have put 10 people through between the highway, and we've also implemented 2 or 3 individuals for the sewer district also. So that program is working very well.
But proven, and it's a department that's taken the initiative to themselves to try to improve that sort of process, right? So that's good.
And as far as retention with those people, they sign a contract, and it's prorated for 5 years. If they leave after the first year, they have to pay it back, and it's prorated out for 5 years. If they leave within 5 years, they have to pay a portion of that.
Had
cost
any,
back.
it's pretty new, but is it much squabble with that?
No, I think it's gone very well. We haven't heard any.
That's good.
Thank you, Dan. Anything else regarding capital? If Not seeing or hearing any. If not, let's finish up, if we would, with snow removal and before our first break, if we can, Drew.
Snow removal is the road salt purchasing for the year. The expense total, is a decrease of 441,000 roughly compared to 2024. The price of salt actually dropped for the second consecutive year. So that was good to see in our expense. And then the revenue total is the payments that we receive from other municipalities who use our salt stockpiles. So revenue obviously is down because the price of salt is down. So the local share is a decrease then of 386,500 roughly.
Great, great.
Question on usage? The last 2 winters have been very mild, at least from a farmer's perspective, and I understand that the usage of salt for 23 and 24 winter is down, but are we projecting a more normal winter?
The 2023 was a low year for salt, and the start of 2024 was also on the low end of things. Our average from 2012 is, they were both below average. We still project based off of our average usage over the past, like I said, I've tracked it back to 2012.
Okay, so you're using the 10-year
Yeah.
plus average, good.
Yeah.
Yes, Dan.
I have to be John Davis for a minute.
Oh, here we go. Here it is.
I'm gonna go get a cookie. I always agreed with his question, but he was always here to ask it. But do we currently research other alternatives also? I know, we have a lake study that's going on. And our lake really wasn't earmarked as a bad lake for salt infiltration and as a major driver of some of our problems. I'm sure it's an additive to it. But like Lake Placid in that particular area utilized a lot of salt, and it was a leading cause of a lot of their lake issues. And they mitigated that by other alternatives than salt, right? So they took the salt off the roads and the lake problems cleared up to a point. So what else did they do? And they're still covering it, and it's just as options, and I'm sure that you may or may not look into other alternatives and the usage, but there's different technologies out there for sure. Other parts of our state that get the same amount or more or less snow have come up and utilized different methods probably just as effectively. Maybe they cost more, I don't know that, maybe they don't, but we wouldn't have to lease vehicles as much either. We could buy them and they'd last for longer too. But if you go back to the buying program, but it's just as always a debate. But
Yeah, I know there's other counties and other, municipalities that are going back to the use of what they call salt brine, which is now man-made brine. It's basically salt mixed with water, and then they use it as a liquid de-icer. But again, you're gonna have cost of all that new equipment and setting all that up. The availability of getting equipment now being harder and harder all the time. And if you look around our lake, I know we have county roads, but basically all of your routes around the lake are either state or local municipalities. So as far as the county being, I don't wanna say responsible, but dumping salt into the lake, I don't think our routes are that close to the lake, you know what I'm saying? It's more local and state, as you see the state on 86 across the bridge, and their policies 394, 430, those are all state routes, so.
Tim, I can add some color to this because a few years ago, prior to your being in the position, I actually arranged for the consultant that was developing the alternative methods for Lake George and Lake Placid to come and speak with our Director of Public Facilities and our road supervisors about what he was implementing in those areas. And as you point out, there's a significant cost involved, and it's more than just the cost of creating the brine, but the technologies that are employed in those areas include different plow edge technology, different monitoring of the flow rates coming out of the hopper or the brine, GPS technology. There's lots of technology and equipment involved that has a pretty hefty price tag attached to it. And as you point out, the state DOT is one of the largest contributors to salt into all of our lakes. And the state is finally doing some studies with this technology in the Adirondacks area. And so there may be a hope that in the future they could look at implementing some of this technology. But for those of you that travel around during the winter and see where a state plow is applying salt and comes to a stop and sits there for a few minutes before they can leave, you'll agree that the pile of salt that results is probably an opportunity to improve. The state DOT has lots of opportunities to improve, and they're, as you point out, one of the larger contributors of salt to our lakes. So I understand why the county was reluctant to embark on this technology. It was relatively new at that point in time. As you point out, it's been advanced, and there are other counties that are implementing some of it now. I think it's something we should keep our eyes on as opportunities for the future. And certainly if the state DOT embraces it, that would be a great incentive for us to move forward.
And a lot of them too, you'll see when the salt goes off, when it comes off the truck and hits the road, it'll bounce and go, as we've all seen that. So what they'll do is they'll have liquid tanks on their truck that help make that salt damp, so it'll help from bouncing more and traveling. But I've experienced it all, okay? I've been here in the highway business since 1990. I've been through the salt brine, you know, when it was free. I know the county was giving it when it was free. And that's a whole nother story the road we could go down. But it's not free anymore because the DEC and all of the mandates and all of the testing that has to be done before that salt brine that was free back in the day can be used now. So now basically you're buying the salt, the bulk salt still, and you're just making that into a liquid for the application. So there's a lot to it.
Yes, there is.
And I've personally seen it because when I was with the town, we were using sand and salt, okay? And the town's out there putting it down. Next thing you know, the county comes by putting straight salt down. Well, guess what? The town has to go back out again. Now we're paying overtime because of the sand and the salt doesn't work as well as just the pure salt does. So there's a lot, like Peter said, there's a lot of cost and a lot of give and takes to what we're doing that could be looked at.
Great, thank you. Yes. Oh.
Just because the salt discussion over my tenure here has always been like a highlight of the budget. I'm being funny. The cost of salt has gone down. What was the cost of salt last year?
6403,
This year?
4904,
2022?
82 something.
82 something.
And that was because we had another vendor come in, Compass Minerals, so there was competition.
Remember that discussion.
And we have to buy a certain amount of salt, yes?
Yeah. I think we put in for 34,000. That's our allowance that we put in for, and we have to purchase 50% of that now. We just changed it this year to 50% you have to purchase. So we're obligated to purchase 17,000 ton a year.
And we're gonna need that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I participated in the salt discussion.
Appreciate that. Any other questions, comments, snow removal? Hearing, seeing none, gentlemen, I certainly appreciate it. By my understanding, it's a good time for a break. If I'm not seeing any objection to that, 10:47, how about we try to shoot for 11 o'clock? Thank you very much.
do it.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
If you can do that, I guess I'll be gone. You'll be,
You're leaving?
I'm leaving.
I'm sure.
Gotta go.
Probably gonna break at 9:30. All right, welcome back to Public Facilities. We'll now continue. Go ahead, Drew.
Okay. Onto the DM fund, the road machinery. This is the expenses for the 3 shops, including the fuel, equipment and vehicle repairs, and the stock room. FTEs remain unchanged from 2024, 15.95. This includes all the mechanics, the stock room personnel, welders, and fleet manager. The expense total, just over 5 million. That represents an increase in the total expense of just over $308,000 compared to the 2024 adopted budget. And the largest contributing factors to this increase is a projected increase in diesel costs, cost of supplies, and vehicle lease costs. The lease, just one thing on the leases, the last couple of years as we transitioned into this program has just been a little bit of a moving target as we still own some vehicles. We're beginning to lease, and as we're kind of been trading those in, we kind of feel like we're getting to the point where we've got all the vehicles traded in that need to be traded in or will be as of next year. So I think that'll start kind of settling down a little bit.
It wasn't, sorry, but it was an availability thing too. You know, Jim had these vehicles on order, but as we know, last year, the year before, we haven't been able to get them. And now things are starting to come in, so we'll pretty much probably have everything that we've done.
The lease vehicle kind of ends at like a pickup truck?
Yeah.
We don't lease any of the
Yeah.
big
No,
trucks.
yeah,
Just the
And
light duty.
our light duties, which we're gonna look at that, like our 1-ton dumps, our welder trucks. A lot of these vehicles that have to be upfitted, you know, like specialty things put on them, there's a huge cost to that. So we're gonna look at that when the time comes up to possibly start purchasing them and owning them because of those costs. I think it might be more affordable to look at that than to keep those vehicles, and there's not a lot of them, but.
But on those, you're kind of leasing the
Yeah.
truck with no body on it, and then you're outfitting it,
Well, then they outfit it for us, and there's a cost of that.
and then you're leasing that part of it also?
Well, it's all one package.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And then there is revenue in this account, and that revenue is basically from the fuel use from other county departments, and there's also other outside users that use the fuel as well. And then there's interest earnings included in the revenue for this account. And the revenue is an increase of just over 100,000 compared to 2024. Again, the increase in revenue is the projected increase of the diesel prices for those outside users, and then the change in the interest earnings. So altogether, the local share is just under $4 million, increase of 205,000, almost $206,000 from 2024.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, Drew, when we were talking about carts, we got a little bit into the cost of gasoline and diesel. Could you give us a more in-depth explanation of what our cost for gasoline and diesel has been, what it is now, what you're projecting next year, and why?
Yeah, our fleet manager projected this year's this year's cost based off of trends and what he's seen use-wise. And for 2025, for gasoline, the projected rate was $2.96 per gallon for gas and $3.59 per gallon for diesel. In 2024, the cost for gas was $3.06 per gallon projected and $3.11 projected for the diesel. I don't have 2023's
Sam, do you have
cost.
the current fee?
I do
Pull
have,
up the
I
current
just pulled up
prices
the
right
current
now.
gas and diesel price. The current price we're paying for gasoline through the OGS contract is $2.61 per gallon. And that's this week's price, that does fluctuate weekly. And diesel. Chautauqua County is paying currently for diesel $2.45 per gallon for diesel.
Yeah. Diesel, I do know, has gone down the second half of the year versus the first half of the year.
But that is a variable pricing, that is updated weekly by OGS, that is not a locked-in price, that's a 7-day price.
Did you say gas was $2.61?
Yeah, diesel is cheaper than gas currently at this price.
Isn't that
Through
un-
OGS, it's
that
unusual
not
to see
unusual?
that, but it's happened in the past.
For diesel to be cheaper than gas?
That's unusual.
But it is not, it has happened in the past couple of years, I've seen a period of diesel was cheaper than gas from, through OGS only though.
Right.
20 years ago was the opposite all the time.
Right, yeah, it was a third or whatever.
Do you have an off-road price also? Do you utilize off-road?
We don't use it.
So, Drew, if I understood you correctly, what you're saying is that your fleet manager projected an average cost for 2024. And you gave us those figures. I think for gasoline it was 306, and for diesel it was 311.
Yep.
So he had took into consideration what we paid month by month and projected what it would be for the balance of the year. So recognizing that the current prices, this week's prices, are highly variable, that would indicate that you're projecting next year the price of gasoline to go down by 10 cents a gallon, and the price of diesel to go up by 48 cents a gallon. What are your projections for next year based on cost per gallon? What's,
I can get more information from, how he arrived at those figures and provide it to you, if that.
yes, we have this discussion every year,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
apologize, but.
No, I know, cause every year it's up and down.
Yes.
And we're also in an election year, so, it kinda throws another
And it's a big dollar.
monkey wrench.
Big
Yeah.
dollar amount.
Yeah.
Yes, and, we're dealing with national policies. I mean, we expect to see fewer diesel trucks on the roads in the future because of the electrification of transportation. We are also seeing pressure put on refineries that maybe the availability would, so it's a cost, price, supply, demand issue. It's difficult to project, and I'm not gonna criticize your projections, but I'd like to understand them better, if you could help us with that.
Understood.
And your projections are also utilized by every other department that utilizes gas and diesel.
Right.
Yep, so it's not just the cost that we're looking at here, the expense we're looking at here, but it's in every department as well, most every department.
And are we still able to make an adjustment if we need to?
Oh, yes.
Do you wanna change
Oh,
those
yes.
numbers?
Oh, yes. We
Well-
haven't till Friday.
We're basically
Yes,
hoping
but we-
that they're wrong. We're hoping the projections are
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
Well, not for gasoline, because gasoline's already going down.
Right, okay, yeah. Gasoline, we want it to be right.
Diesel.
Diesel, we want it to be wrong.
We want it to be right. The best guess we can make.
We want it to be right,
But wrong.
yeah.
Katie, you have any thoughts?
I got you.
I mean, when they're contemplating amendments, they know with the parameters in which we need to work in, so.
Thank you.
How are we doing this year on fuel based on our assumptions last year, you know, and I'm assuming he may have used the same, formula, formula basis, so we'll see how he did, you know, it's a rating scale, how did we do this year? With our guests from last year, it was the same debate, where, you know, that's not broken down. It's in fuel. You know, so for gasoline, we've actually used 340,000 and we have budgeted 771, right? So we're heavy. That's probably why you decreased it some too. What's the diesel fuel?
Diesel fuel's coming in at 236.
So if it's any consolation, the U.S. Energy Information Administration projects diesel prices this year at the pump now, not your wholesale, at $3.92, and next year at $4.08, so an increase of 16 cents on $3.92.
Is it diesel, is that we're raising that? from
Whatever
48
percent that is.
Yeah.
And we've used 118,000 this year, with 266 left, so I mean, we're probably on pace for that, I would guess.
But our rates are based on what the state contract
state
rates are,
contract
so
rates.
they would be lower than
Right.
that.
And, yeah, they already are lower than what.
But she assumed the rates are okay, but probably the increase would still be,
Yeah,
The
the
same.
percent, if you're using
Yeah.
Like percent.
percentage.
Percentage.
But even at that projection, they're still lower than
Yeah.
projection.
Yeah, so that increase is 4% for whatever it's worth.
we are heavy on, or we haven't used a lot of gas this, do you see a shift? You know, why haven't we used as much gas as we predicted, is that overall shift? We haven't really implemented very many electric cars, have we, as a county?
Yeah, but the cost of the extension cord.
Yeah.
Also, you know, what's not have.
It's a sector, it's just
Yeah.
the helicopter. It's just turn around.
Right. But that's the budget for it too.
Well, our goal is to be as accurate as we can,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can revisit those numbers. And
because we certainly don't want you coming back next September and asking us for $150,000 for.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll have to find reductions elsewhere.
Was that?
Increases for fuel would, you know, we'll need to consider what reductions we could find elsewhere overall,
So far, they're only allowed 24,000, right?
something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And their revenue would also be adjusted because of the municipal sales.
Okay. Thank you. All right, moving right along. Debt service, is that next?
Yes. Debt service, DM 9730. This is principal and interest payments for bonds that were taken out for equipment purchases. And I believe there were two bonds with one, you can correct me if I'm wrong, one due around 2029 and one due at 2037. So that expense is based on that repayment schedule. just over $1 million with no revenue. So local share, again, the same as the expense, an increase of almost 208,000 from 2024.
Okay, questions? Kind of straightforward. Everybody good? Good? Good. Good. All right. EM 9901, transfer to other funds.
I believe that is the finance transfer from the A fund to the DM fund.
Yep. At least that's what it says.
In other words, this figure represents for the D fund what is, covered by the levy, for the D fund operating. We don't allocate the property tax across the funds, it's all collected in the general fund.
Okay. All right. Any further questions, comments, concerns? Everybody's good?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, just one other point to note was reviewed yesterday, the uses of fund balance, so the budget does, propose to use $600,000 of D fund balance to, fund the D fund, with some of the surplus this year will be returned to the D fund balance, and there was approximately, I think $800,000 or $700,000 existing D fund balance. And the fund balance from the D fund can only be used for D fund expenditures. Just wanted to point that out, for this committee as well.
That's one of the points I remember hearing being said. Thank you. All right. Very good. All right. What's next?
That's it for me, right? That's it for me. All right, thank you.
Good job, Drew. Thank you.
Thanks, sure. All right. Morning, Aaron.
15 minutes.
15 minutes? I got extra time.
No, you don't.
We got extra lunch.
We have extra time.
That's true. This is true.
No, no.
You're in control. Take your time.
Never mind. Please introduce yourself.
Aaron Gustafson, Deputy Director of Public Facilities Environment. Here to present the landfill budget. If you take a look quick at the summarization sheets, you'll see overall, we have a total increase of about 291,000 and change. The bulk of those, as we break out the different portions of the account, you'll see there's some potential leachate cost increase on the horizon that's still in limbo. We're negotiating that with the BPU. And then we have some planned building maintenance, so I beefed up some accounts for. Of course, wages have gone up with some of the collective bargaining agreements of late. Retirement benefits seem to be kind of high, at least a little higher. If you have questions, Katie is gonna have to help me with that one a little bit. And then we have some subcontractor costs that I've added a few dollars to. That would be the bulk of that. There's some other small things, but I am using the summary right now. But if you look at the FTEs, we dropped 2 full FTEs from last year. One is Chad's position when he moved to finance. And the other was really kind of a phantom position, if you will. So we had a supervisor who was double counted because he was a 60-40 supervisor in MEO, correct? Correct me if I'm putting it out there right there. So when we reallocated a position, we got rid of the supervisor and just made an MEO a 299. So the FTEs kind of reflect that. So we didn't really lose a body. We just lost an FTE, if you will, the way it was reported. Does that make sense?
Paper loss.
Yeah. The only body we lost was Chad, and we're paying our portion, I'm sure, through our accruals now, but,
I have a question on FTEs.
Yeah.
You have 42 listed here, for this year, and 40 for next year. Where do you stand, how many employees do you actively have, and how have you been doing with recruitment, retention, that sort of thing?
we only have one open position, which we did reallocate and is accounted for here, which is shared with the highway. We're looking for an engineer 3 to share with them. Otherwise, we are fully staffed for once. It's nice to have. We have roughly 40 counting me employees, I believe. So it's almost 1-to-1 here with the FTE ratio.
How long have you had that vacant engineering?
It's been since Panelise left, so 2022.
Just a few years. It came up in discussion a little earlier underneath the engineering section, and the work that you've managed to get the work completed, but is the area certainly lacking, and are you working on trying to redevelop the work, or what's the plan moving forward, because it's been proven not to be, you haven't been able to fill the position very easily.
Any work moving forward, what we can't do in-house, we can do a lot of the work, we just don't have necessarily the certifications that we may need for some of it. The highway has stepped up and helped in a couple of areas, but we've subcontracted a few firms through different firms to help with some of the work in those aspects. So thus far, it hasn't been overly egregious in costs. One's washed the other, but the subcontracting will be a little more expensive from time to time, but that should come in, in swings. Like right now, you'll see in here, there's some contracting work because we have a contractor working on our new waste permit, which is quite in depth and pulls in a lot of things like radiation detection will be something we're gonna install, solid waste management plan, renewals for the transfer stations were added to some of that. And so, not all of that would be done in-house anyways. I mean, it would be smart to use the expertise of some of these engineering firms that are really based in solid waste and what we do, and have a real good connection with what the state or the feds are looking for. So we would utilize them anyways for that reason. So we're doing fine to answer you. It'd be nice to have the availability in some aspects to save some money utilizing this shared FTE, but for us, it's not detrimental yet.
Thank you.
So that shared position, I assume you need the same engineering, maybe you already answered this. I know an engineering, I'll call it an engineering degree was required to fill the other part of it, that's also required for your part. Does that make sense?
What is it? No, I don't.
Well, part of
think
the
I've
discussion
covered
we
it.
had earlier
Having
was
to be an engineer 3. Having
an
a
engineering
Yeah.
degree, they're looking to hire an engineer.
Yes, yes.
So that engineer title covers your part of it also.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
we
You
need
know what I'm
someone
saying?
with
Like,
a, with
if
a
it was just-
stamp to,
We need an engineer for
Yeah.
60%, but the 40% for landfill is just,
yes,
we just need a person,
Yep.
not an engineer, but we need an engineer across that whole.
yeah,
Fire.
for some of the needs that we'd be looking for that should fulfill the need,
Okay.
that's our assumption there.
Okay.
Anyways, we've always had, we've usually had one on staff, but they haven't always done engineering work.
So, Aaron, I think the root of the question is, do you need a professional engineer? Or
Yes.
most of what you need did not need to be done by a professional?
Yeah, there's some the state highly encourages, there's some professional engineering work and engineering attributed to our staff, if you will. So, plus, we could utilize a professional engineer, their stamp, their, between their forces and ours, for sure. 'Cause we get away with it because we're the county and we have an engineering, but I'd like to have one specified to really work with us on what we need.
So, like we talked earlier with engineering, finding a professional engineer is like looking for hen's teeth right now. But to the extent that Drew and you could get by with a non-certified professional engineer to do the bulk of your work, I think that's an option that Dan was exploring that we should consider.
Oh, and we already do that. I mean, some of my staff does engineering level work.
Yeah.
We just, if we needed to stamp it to send it out for a permit or something, we can't obviously do that. So if we had someone working with us that was comfortable using their stamp for that, then we could do all of that in-house easier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other FTE questions? I'm gonna go and move on then to our 1000s accounts. So it'll be the landfill accounts. Again, I'm in the summary. If you can see, our personal services are actually a little less in this account, because I took a real close look at every line item this year and tried to see what we were utilizing, what we haven't been. I have a projection sheet, so I took it to halfway through the year. I looked at some past years and really tried to trim the fat, if you will, on some things, because we haven't had a positive budget since 2019. I'd like to give a positive budget one of these days, but with our wage and, with our pricing increases over the last couple of years, I didn't feel we needed to do that this year. And with the MO with the charting I've done with the waste and the income and the expenses, I feel like some of these fine-tooth cuts will make the difference, and I have some other irons in the fire to maybe help get a positive budget out there. But reduction in overtime, we don't have any big construction projects, kind of status quo projects this year has helped. Vacation buyback is lowered, and a change in accounts. So we moved a couple accounts from this specific 1,000 to some other accounts, from personal services to contractual. And then, Chad's off our payroll, and he would have been in this account, some of him, that's a big chunk too. Our equipment fund, it's just slightly up from last year's budget. These are just one-off, this is not our capital equipment fund, that's in the contractuals. These are just a couple special items that we are looking to help the mechanics mostly. It's a bandsaw and a truck lift that we specified for these accounts. Contractually, we are up, 243,000. This is where the leachate potential comes in, so it may not be that bad. We can certainly, if we come to agreement with the BPU at some point in time and it's lower, we could make an amendment and adjust this, but I didn't wanna leave ourselves high and dry here. We have some contractual changes, just different contractors, different agreement services, a little more increased pricing. And I have, some maintenance plans for like my North County and Fredonia and Sherman to do some maintenance work to those facilities using the budget line items. So I increased it a few costs there. And then, permit work, so that's some of the subcontractor work I was talking about through some engineering services and some others. And then there is increased equipment costs in here. So the depreciated value lines have increased a little because we're spending a little more every year to purchase some of the equipment we have, especially like this year, we had to spend a little over $1 million for a new landfill compactor. And then, of course, I increased our closure costs. So this is money we're also putting away, which is coming out as an expense. Because of an analysis I had done through an engineering firm that said we were in really good shape with our post-closure revenues and savings, but we should probably increase our closure costs a bit, which comes with the just increase of subcontracting work, materials, liners it's a plastic HDP polyethylene liner that, the cost is ever increasing with the materials, so. But we're still in pretty good shape compared to a lot of other landfills, FYI, with our closure and post-closure situation. So I felt pretty good about that. And there's some insurance, I think it was the retirement insurance or something was in there, which is the one that's not my number, so. And then employee benefits, you see we're up a little there, 51,800 and change. Again, that's employee benefits cost, that retirement surcharge comes into play. And, there's a few more guys opting out that comes into this too. To increase that pay level line. And then on the revenue side, you can see we're down in our department income, so that would be the in-county waste. And then we are also down in the out-of-county waste portion just of it. This is just due to waste being redirected. More of it's getting recycled. There's a big push to pull the organics out of the waste stream for the most part. We have this population decline slightly, could be part of it for the in-county waste, but all in all, it's just the waste stream is getting cleaned up a little bit. So to increase the revenues, I would look at that shared service line and see what we can do to an extent on the out-of-county side, unless we create another town in our county and populate it. And then, but the use of money and property, which I believe would be the interest and earnings side of things, it's a finance number, but that is looking and projected to be quite positive, I'm assuming because it looks pretty good thus far this year as well. So we have quite a bit of that money that we put away for the rainy days invested, and it seems to be doing well for us. Any questions on our landfill 1000s accounts?
Yes, Aaron, looking at your revenue, your projections for 2024 indicate that your revenue is going up substantially this year.
Yes.
And then it's going down 20% in-county and 13% with shared services next year. If the way you described the changes in the waste stream, why did we see such an increase this year and now a dramatic decrease, anticipated dramatic decrease next year?
Because I conservatively estimate this revenue based on normal volumes. So this year we've done fairly decent on one-offs, as I like to call them, so special projects that popped up, you know, as you know, we had the unfortunate airplane accident at the airport recently, and that's a little spike in our revenue in August because we ended up with the contaminated soils that'll be paid out. We had the Crawford Furniture Building fire cleanup. These are one-offs that may not happen next year and may not be there, so I don't want to necessarily plan on those. So I'm kind of pull some of these spikes out if I have specific events like that to plan the budget on what the normal stream would be. I left the budget negative because generally we always have these. If you know, since 19, we haven't put a positive budget out, but we've had 1 year of a negative revenue, you know, negative overall year to date. So I expect that we'll get some. Something will happen somewhere that we'll get some revenue. We also, the way the state's waste stream is going, I could see the potential for some out-of-county revenue to come to us. We'll manage it carefully, but I'm trying to keep the waste stream and the cost low for our residents, so I'm kind of hedging the bet there, and it's worked for the last several years. But that's why the numbers that you see this year are different from the numbers I'm projecting, because they are conservative.
Yep. Aaron, I appreciate the explanation, and I just wanted to highlight the details here, that what you're saying is you're projecting 2025 based on normal volumes,
Yes.
rather than anticipating that we could get another spike, we could get another unexpected event.
Yeah.
And even though you're saying that you're projecting a loss next year of $300,000, the previous column shows that or the two previous columns, that you're anticipating this year a gain of $2.9 million. So your fund balance potentially could increase by $2.9 million at the end of this year, which means you could easily absorb a $300,000 loss next year. So
Correct, yeah. Hedging the bet, as I put earlier, it's a lot more comfortable to do because we did put our fund balance positive last year, and then like you say, this year, hopefully it'll maintain a positive fund balance too, in the event that we do go negative.
yes.
We try to work well within our operating budget and keep our expenses down too, but I did trim a lot of that fat off our expenses to try to make this budget look more realistic.
Yes.
So,
And you're also, as you indicated, you're doing an excellent service to the community by keeping the consumer costs as low as possible.
that's the MO.
Yep.
So this may be a 26 question. Are you familiar with the Extended Producer Responsibility Act that
Yeah,
popping around through Albany?
and it keeps getting shot down.
And so, one of the reasons it keeps getting shut down is the wine industry dramatically opposes it.
Mhm.
I see it's backed in the Association of County Government magazine. So my question really is, when we try, and one of the arguments is that in the effort to drive landfill costs down, we actually drive costs to the public up
Potentially.
more than it goes down at the landfill, because now you got all sorts of people running around all over the place, trying to collect this stuff. Whereas collecting garbage is a natural monopoly to be efficient.
Mhm.
And so that's the argument that's kind of going back and forth. And I wonder, to what extent are you part of that, and how does the landfill feel, think about that?
Well, I think reducing and recycling should be on everyone's mind. I don't think we should put the cart in front of the horse on some of these things. I don't think the responsibility of that should be on a landfill owner. We should monitor, and our responsibility is taking what we're allowed to, and making sure it's only what is allowed to, and in protecting the environment.
Sure.
I like the idea of producer responsibility, only that will put the responsibility to help create these markets, which will be at a cost, you're 100% correct, at least initially. But hopefully the markets could become self-sustaining at some point in time. I don't have the answers for that by any means, but it shouldn't be the county's cost and responsibility. It should go, if it's not a producer, at the individual level to pay for these somehow. But there's no drive. How do we create the drive to pull these things out of the landfill?
Well, presumably, you want to handle the waste stream in a total sense, in the most cost-effective way. Not just looking at it from the landfill point of view, but
Yep.
looking at it from the entire beginning to end
Mhm.
of the value chain.
So that's where it should be pulled out at the individual level. That's the
And-
most
and-
cost-effective way.
And what are the costs of doing all of that?
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's another bill running in our, which is just the bottle deposit
Mhm.
thing, which is, in many ways, makes more sense from a glass perspective.
Yeah, because it adds value to that market, which may stimulate a market and create something. The redemption has been one of the more positive, successful, let me put it that way, markets in New York State, as far as plastics go, for sure. Glass, I don't know about that, but certainly plastics. So expanding that and maybe adding an increase may actually help our plastic situation as far as what we handle with the county, so to an extent.
That infrastructure exists already,
Yeah,
as a collection infrastructure.
yes, it does. It may need to be adapted, though, if they do add some of those bigger glass bottles, like your wine bottles and your liquor bottles, but, I have personal stance, I have political stances on some of them, but, all in all, there's something to be said with the organics being pulled out of the waste stream as well, because we have a beneficial use gas system at the landfill, so if we pull the organics out, now that's a loss for us through them.
But from a county perspective, as we represent not only the landfill and its costs, but all our constituents and their
Yes,
costs.
yeah.
We're looking for the lowest cost end-to-end solution to these things.
Yeah. It's a vicious circle that doesn't really exist that they're trying to promote right now. I did present to the public facilities on the county's waste, or the state's waste management plan. I think it was recorded, if you'd like to look it up and say, or I'd be happy to meet with you and talk with you on it too. There's some missing pieces to their circular society, or circular stream, so, for sure.
Kind of one item to emphasize. It's the leachate. Could we just go into a little more detail on your leachate expense and what you're expecting? So, the leachate's the gooey stuff that runs out of the bottom of the hole, and it's piped all the way to the wastewater treatment facility from the BPU.
Yes.
And what is that, there's a negotiated rate, and as to my understanding, is they want to increase that substantially from what we currently are paying, correct?
That is correct.
How much of an increases are they proposing? And that's still a discussion item, but.
It is a discussion item, and I have some other thoughts to attack this, but currently what they proposed was to immediately double the rate, and then within the next 6 years, take that to another, up another 25%. So essentially be 75% of what we're at now, so.
And how much of an increase would that roughly be based on what we've been sending them?
Not having any numbers in my head, or actually with me today, but we end up paying 86% in the next 6 years of what we've paid in the last 20 years.
It's a pretty substantial hit
Yeah.
to the,
Yeah,
to the contractual costs.
Yeah. I thought I threw the chart in here as a visual, but I don't remember.
Is the leachate particularly nasty or something?
It can be. Ours does not, we don't have to pre-treat. So our leachate is pretty reasonable.
I think that what part of the expenses is associated with some repair work too, that gets done with some of the piping, right?
Yeah, so right now, the way it's set up, we pay a rate per thousand for the treatment of the leachate itself at the facility. And then there's a they call it a transport fee. And in the contract, the transport fee reads as language to help provide for the cost of pumping and maintaining the line. It'd be a user fee, just like anyone else's sewage treatment would be, for the most part, you know, your infrastructure costs of maintaining that. And so we pay, like I said, per thousand for both of those combined, and then they pay for their sludge coming back.
Aaron, from past experience, I have experience with treatment of leachate at the South and Center Chautauqua Lake Sewer District plant, when I was, from my experience on the board there. And so I know the ins and outs of treating leachate. And treating leachate, it's not the same as treating household waste.
Correct.
And it's not the same as treating rainwater, but it's a lot closer to treating rainwater than it is to treating household waste. So when, in your discussions with the BPU, I would be happy to assist you in your discussions and negotiations.
Oh, okay. I will talk with you afterwards, because I have an idea that I've ran by some others, so
Okay,
we greatly appreciate it.
sure.
I just want to make
Yeah.
a comment, just, I found interesting, and I'll share it with everybody, and just bear with me for a minute. I spent 2 weeks in Spain this summer, and it was very interesting to go into every kitchen I was in. There was a kitchen sink, there was a cupboard, and then there was a big drawer in every kitchen I was in. And you pull that drawer out, and it's 4 compartments, and that's their garbage can. One was organic, and everything was in the plastic bag line. Every kitchen, it was like across the board, it was very interesting. You put your organics, you had your paper and cardboard, you had your plastics, and you had your glass. And I got very frustrated with it, because I'm an American and I'm used to just throwing, other than recyclables, garbage in the garbage can. But it was very interesting. The other fun thing was, at the end of every driveway, there were typically a setup like with 4 hooks on it, and everything was color coded. Yellow was organic, green was, you know, and I think it was every other day, you took your garbage out, and to keep it off the ground, they had buckets and stuff. You hung it on there, and you paid for somebody to pick it up every other day. And I was kind of fascinated by that, because just the way we do things and the way they do things. Now, to their advantage is, they don't have far less packaged food products than we do. Most everything's coming from the market, so their organic waste is very high. I didn't get to a point where I could talk to anybody, where does this stuff go, you know, and how do they treat it? But it was interesting to have 4 separate, and what an impact that would have on our landfill. You know, if all the organics went somewhere, my first thought was the gas production, that goes away. So, and the increase, it's gotta cost a lot to have your garbage picked up every other day.
Well, that's what a lot of our communities are doing, though. I mean, Jamestown has pickup every couple of days, and, well, they flop their recycling to every week is a different pickup. So they're separating it, so instead of every day, they're doing it maybe every 3 weeks on some of the recycling, with the exception that they don't have an organic pickup right now. But that's what the state's trying to move to.
Right.
That's what I was alluding to, talking to Mr. Johnson, was like, they're trying to pull a lot of those organics out.
Right.
And you're correct, a big problem is that they are all packaged. And depackaging is time consuming if you don't have the expensive machinery to do it.
And in their organics, the only packaging was putting it in the plastic garbage bag.
Yeah.
That's the only time that
Yeah.
food ever saw packaging. And I was notorious for putting paper in the organic, and then I would be spoken to. Fortunately, it was in a different language, so I didn't know exactly what they were saying, other I was doing wrong. So now I'm picking paper, because it was, and it was, I mean, they policed it within every household.
Yeah.
It was sort of a lot of time spent on garbage, which,
Yeah, but you
kinda
know,
cool.
depending on the cost, if you didn't even know what the cost was and if it's subsidized on the pickup, I know we're getting off topic here
yeah,
quick, but,
hey, it was,
that's interesting, but it's,
and we'd all have
putting
to
it on
change
the
our
individual
kitchens,
is the
because
way
we
to
have
go.
a big drawer under the,
Yeah, I wonder, did it get stinky? Not every day, every other day, it wouldn't be too bad, probably.
yeah. Okay, thanks for listening.
Yeah. Any other questions on the 1000s, the landfill? We'll move to closed landfills if you have any, if you don't have any more questions. So closed landfills, it's a pretty simple line item here. You can see we did because we have some FTEs allotted to this, some percentage of our employees are allotted to these categories. You'll see an increase in the personal services, a slight one, $1,800 and change. Most of that's just the contractual raises from the collective bargaining agreement. And then we did decrease on contractual, and that's just some less electricity usage that's attributed to the contractual, and less leachate being produced. It was a pretty dry year at South Stockton, so we paid a little less on the volume that we took out. So, and then on the employee benefits again, we had some reallocations and then some lower benefit charges in this area.
Aaron, does that leachate on the closed ones ever go away?
So,
I'm sure like the reading is
yeah.
lower and lower and lower and lower and lower.
Well, yes, to an extent, and then it's like kind of leveled out. South Stockton's the only one that is collected on.
Okay.
The rest of them, we monitor all of them. And there hasn't been any signs of any issues. South Stockton, I think there was a concern years ago with Castalia Creek being so close to it and being downstream. And because of the volumes that it was creating, they don't want to let us just pack it up and release still.
How long has that been closed?
Oh, since, right before we came up the hill, so 81.
Okay,
There was probably a transition there, 81, 82, but
close enough.
yeah,
40-some years.
yep.
So I mean, you would think after 50 years,
Yeah,
It'd be
and
like
that's
monitoring
where we were coming from, because it's a cost to
groundwater.
us. So we've reached out, I know Keystock reached out, and, well, within the last 15 years, anyhow, he's asking the state to allow us to just even maybe release it to the, let it drain, or plug everything up. And then they weren't comfortable with, there's some numbers that they didn't like in it. Probably contaminates in just the system itself is most of it. So the rainwater comes through and is just picking up a little bit that was there in the piping or something.
right? Okay.
Could that be researched again at all at some point?
Yeah, I've talked to Brian about it, and then I have talked with our state inspector, and she seemed to think at the time that we'd get a redundant answer, so I'm keeping abreast of it. I haven't officially sent anything out again yet, so we'll keep our eyes on it.
Not only reduction of the leachate cost, but also the manpower.
Yes, because we're trucking that from
Yep.
South Stockton to the landfill, and then it's piped.
Yep.
Yeah.
If we didn't have to do it, it would be savings.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. And that was some of the argument. I have the paperwork. Keith wrote a beautiful letter to him.
Stay on top of that for us.
Yeah. So there's not a lot of revenue of any sort at the closed land field. Any questions on that account line? Nothing. We'll move on to 7,000 recycling. This is an interesting line sometimes. So, personal services, you see, we actually reduced by 14,000. Some of that's reduced overtime. Again, FTEs, we have a couple of employees that attributed to, their FTEs attributed to recycling to this account line item. So, Chad was one of those employees, so when his position left, it reduced some of the personal costs too. So, and then on the contractual side, you see we're down there. Reduction on expense for recycling. So, we're not getting charged for TVs in the e-waste side of things. So that saved us money on the expense side. So, but you'll see that reflected on the revenue side because we're not charging to cover that cost. The revenues are down. So it's kind of a wash there. So you're just seeing it here. To go to the revenues, department income. That's that TV charge. We're down $10,000. The markets aren't the greatest, but that's more reflective in the sale of property. So that's when we actually sell our plastic that we collect, our paper, whether we collect the metal, any of those sales that we've collected are, I did put an increase of 5. This year's projection is actually more than $105,000, but not significantly. It's projected to be about 117, I think I have here. So I increased it knowing that we were up a little, but the markets are so volatile, I don't want to jump too far. So if next year is again 117, $120,000, then we'll keep creeping toward that mark. Or if something stabilizes, that kind of guarantees those rates. Any questions on the recycling line items? Is there any?
Sure,
Yeah.
just one. The contractual, you know, you've only projected that you projected that you'll be at 3,000. Is that projection number off, or are we waiting on some timing? Is there something that's gonna probably get charged out later in the year?
Yes, that's probably exactly what that was. Thinking about it was by June, some fees hadn't come in, some charges hadn't come in on this, because this is a pretty baseline cost here. Right, that's what I'm thinking. Like the e-waste, we hadn't got a couple of them, and some the metal.
Well, we hadn't taken, you haven't done loads of tires.
Yes.
And that was a huge
Yes.
charge.
Right.
When they take a load of tires to the recycling center. It's a pretty hefty charge, and to date, they hadn't had any, so they are projected. I mean,
You're starting to repurpose some of those tires, right? In
So-
your own place.
Yes, we have been. We have a bud to bale the tires and to utilize them in our gas collection system. But we can't do the huge oversized tires. So your tractor tire, your loader tire, we can't do anything with. They don't fit in a bale. We can't cut them because we do cut like semi-truck tires and stuff and feed them into some of the bales. So we were getting quite a pile, so we entered into an agreement of service to take them. We take them up to Niagara Falls SGS Services, and got rid of a bunch of them, so in the next 20 years, we might have to do that again. But that was a cost to us. We ended up hauling them up, though. We did them fairly reasonable. Actually, I thought the cost through we RFP'd and got a pretty good price on those. So I took advantage of getting rid of them. Because we're not supposed to keep a big pile on site either. The state inspector wants the tires to be moving, so.
Is that one of the factories that burnt up in Buffalo, in the last few years?
No, we take them to a recycler. What they do with them, in our contract, it stated they had to be effectively environmentally friendly, recycled or repurposed. They agreed to that. But, I haven't gone up and policed them, but.
Stuff in a warehouse somewhere.
Yeah.
What happens at the tire recycling stays?
Stays there, yeah. Any other questions on recycling? Well, these are household hazardous waste. So you can see just a slight decrease in the personal services, and that's just because we only have, I think, one guy FTE to it. And because we went from 3 to 2 events a year, he has there's less overtime that he's utilizing because it's a Saturday. That's literally what's reflected right there for the most part. In the contractual, another reason why we went from 3 to 2, you can see that increase. That's the increased cost of the new contractor. The old contractor treated us very well. Might have been a little sketchy at times, looking back, but treated us very well. Now that we have a new contractor, does a very nice job, and then with the new paint care program that he participates with, added some costs. So the cost to put these events on grew egregiously, so that's why this has gone up.
That still seems reasonable for what we're doing.
It isn't bad.
I mean,
And I will go back to 3. I want to make that noted when I feel it needed. But the participation's even been down thus far that having 2 should cover everything. I'll be in the similar locations. What I've done is kept one in Faulkner all the time. That was one of our bigger events. And then I had Mayville this year, or Dunkirk this year, and then next year I won't do Dunkirk, I'll do Mayville. So I'm still getting around the county with them. It just won't be as often. Unless, if participation comes up, we'll add some money and we'll take care of it. There's some other, Cummings does some of this, has a household hazardous type day and stuff, so the more other people are doing it has really helped save our costs too. And then employee benefits is up just slightly. Retirement, I think that retirement insurance income or thing was probably the biggest factor to that. Again, that's a number I don't know. Do you know what any of that's about? The retirement surcharge, wasn't it?
That's the cost for our retirees.
Yeah.
Post-employment benefits.
And that seemed to go up pretty egregious for us this year. But we had a few more people retired, that might be the answer.
Yeah, it's just based on what our costs for retirees are. It's not, we spread those, costs out to all departments, so.
don't let anybody retire.
Well, yeah. There's not gonna be too many too soon. I'm one of the old guys now, so.
Yeah.
You got 20 years.
So is that who they're talking about when they say the old guy? Are they talking about you?
No, it couldn't be me yet. I usually have a worse name, probably.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
then they say the old guy.
Oh, okay. Any questions on household hazardous waste? Our last debt service, it's pretty If you can see, our costs have gone down. thinking this really isn't my line item, but we're paying our bonds and our debts down. So that should be creeping down until we get some new ones.
Pretty self-explanatory.
Any questions? If not, I would like to say, Aaron, I appreciate your approach to the budget and the way you run things.
I do have one question.
I like the conservative approach, but, what do I wanna say, missing the word here, the realistic conservative approach. So you're realistic about expenses, you're realistic about revenues, and, I just like the conservative approach to both sides of that, so what I'm saying, I guess, is, good job.
Thank you. Did you have?
You've got a clothing allowance for last year, you had 7,200, but this year you had 0.
Yeah, that's one of those line items I spoke about in the beginning, that we ended up moving that to a different,
Okay.
into,
It's
was
still
that
in
personal
there, though.
services, and we moved it into contractual, because of the boot allowance was in there,
Okay.
we kinda combined them all.
And then you've got a couple meal lines.
Yep.
I see that's gone up like 3,000.
Because we had those line items for each, transfer station.
Yep.
And so what we
now
did,
all
we realized
covered.
we weren't really paying those out like that. It wasn't a cost I needed to track at the transfer station, so we pretty much just put those, we're gonna use the one line item for Ellery for
Okay.
those meal allowances. So we're
That
kind of eliminating those, really.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I did that, we did that with a couple things.
I said partial Happy Meals, that's nice.
But I do like some of my line items that are separated, and you can ask him, even before he left, we were trying to utilize them more so I could track actual cost separated from Ellery to Fredonia to South County,
Yeah.
I'm trying to utilize those a little more to give us a little better view of what's going on.
Okay.
One last question.
This is it now. No, I'm kidding, go ahead.
You got tonight, you can ask more.
I always ask a question a lot of times that I already know the answer to. Trying to-
Okay, so let's close it here.
So you're considering putting in, implementing credit cards,
Yes.
and do you see that as a positive or a negative, and what do you think that will do for your, you see it as helpful, or is it a cost savings, is it gonna add cost? Have you equated for it at all this year?
Yes, I have I have enough that I'm gonna start the process. We did just upgrade our WasteWorks program so we could implement it, cause it was a little behind. Working through a few more bugs here, but I'm gonna at least get one and start moving with it, work the bugs out with that, and then put them everywhere. I see it as a benefit. I don't know if it would be a cost savings. It won't be a massive cost to us other than buying machinery, so fairly limited, depending on how long it lasts. Cause it already works with the programming we have. It'll be nice not to handle as much cash. I think that just makes sense. It's a better opportunity for our customers, because most people always have their card on them. They don't always have cash anymore. So I look forward to it. I think we needed to get to this point. Everyone has card service. Why don't we? I don't intend it to be a loss. I have to get with Kitty and some finance because of some new state laws about how we might need to adjust pricing so we don't take a small loss on it. But we'll get it figured out.
Some of the stuff I like to just bring to a public forum so that it's on record.
Well, I wanna go on record saying I'm never against you ever making a comment or asking a question, even though I act like that. So, when I go up to the landfill, the North County,
Transfer station?
conference, yeah, I now hand them cash.
Yes.
I assume we're not gonna hand our card, we would have some type of a reader that, because a lot of.
I don't know, right?
I always hand my card, and then they
Yeah.
go, don't give me your card, I'm old school, it's like, here, do what you want with my car.
I don't know if we'll have a gun or anything. It's something I gotta look into. We
I just
definitely
wonder
were
how
gonna have,
comfortable people would be handing their card to the person.
yeah, they may,
I'm okay with it. I'm just
they
saying.
may have, what I intend to get will have the touch.
Touch, yeah.
We may be able to pull the unit out and let them do that if they have touch. Maybe pull it out, they can slide it in if they're
It's
gonna
just one of
punch their
those-
numbers.
Front line.
Yeah. I'm hoping most of them use credit, just because then they won't need to type in, to keep everything moving.
But I just see the new society handing a card to the guy in the shed. He goes in the shed. It just, I'm good with it, but
Yeah. Those are some
it's
things
something to think about.
we're gonna work out. That's why I wanna try it at one facility and see how that goes
Yeah,
first
yep.
and go from there.
We good?
I'm good.
We're good. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Okay.
So next one up is in your book, it's LUNCH.
Excuse me, how do I find that video you referenced?
It's usually posted on YouTube on the county.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It should only take a
So
minute.
just
Well,
Oh,
search
Aaron.
landfill on the YouTube.
Energy plan.
Just in case they ask any
Oh,
operational questions.
sorry, I messed up.
That's tab 24.
I see it.
24 energy,
It's
EE
before
fund.
lunch. E before L.
This-
Oh, just,
So, Kitty Crow, Director of
Thank you.
Finance. So I'm just gonna present the financials for the energy fund, and, I usually just enter the budget, long ago when the energy plant was first constructed, the Director of Finance was involved in the processes, so it's just kind of stayed with me since then. But at this point, operations are a little bit simplified, so to speak, with respect to now we are just leasing the facility, and so we receive lease payment. Most of our remaining expenses are our debt service, with the exception of a few other operating expenses. So the revenue is just the lease payments, along with our interest earnings on the fund. The remaining, the current lease is, well, the lease was let for a 20-year period with, the terms of that, and I'm going through this because a couple of you are newer, and might not know the history on the energy plant, but, the first 10 years of the lease was based on, a fixed lease payment. And then the second, that will help us get to pay down all of our debt service over that 10-year period. For the second 10 years of the lease, it's more based on, I would say, like royalties. And so at that point in time, we expect, the net amount, received to be considered true profit. It does, you'll see on here, on the summary, that it appears that we're gonna make a $264,000 profit, for 2025. However, with the enterprise funds, the treatment of interest and principal payments is a little different than our general funds, whereas the enterprise funds, we record the interest expense in the operating budget, where the principal is adjusting the balance sheets for the liability. So it reduces the outstanding debt, the principal payment does. So this $264,000 is really, from a cash flow perspective, will be used to pay that principal payment. So there's not really a net profit, so to speak, from a cash flow perspective. Once all the debt service is paid down and we have four bonds outstanding, One of them will be paid down in 2025, the next one will be paid down in 2026, and the other two bonds will be paid down by 2030. They are not bonds that can be paid early, but after all the debt is paid, any net profit thereafter can be utilized to transfer to the general fund to help offset the tax levy, which was the original reason for, one of the original reasons. I mean, it does have a environmental benefit, but it was, on conception was meant to generate a profit where the profits could be used to help reduce taxes.
So that money goes into just the general fund, it doesn't stay within the landfill?
It can be used.
could be, but
at the-
it can-
what I'm saying is, we would have some ongoing, maintenance, some potential maintenance costs, after 2030, when the debt is paid down. But after that, the profit can be used for other items after whatever expenses that we have, which should be
Okay.
diminished based on what we're after the debt is paid.
Gotcha.
But sure, it could be used to reduce costs at the landfill, it could be transferred to the general fund, so that would be at your discretion at that time. Other than that, Aaron can answer any other questions about the operations of the energy plant. That is not my expertise. But I have had a tour over the last year. It's very interesting. No questions?
Kitty, since you opened the door for me, I'll go through it for some of our newer legislators. Another unique characteristic of enterprise funds is that they are charged for depreciation. And that the county general fund, the A fund, is not ever charged for depreciation. So if you will, and this applies to the landfill as well as the water and sewer districts, if, this isn't a good example because this is a standalone project. We built the energy plant. We took out bonds that are repaid over the life of the bonds, which could be 20, 30 years.
Correct.
You're paying interest and principal payments each year. At the same time, you're paying depreciation each year. And at the end of the bonds, when the bonds are fully paid and the depreciation amount is reduced to near zero, if you needed to replace that plant, what would you do? You'd build a new one and you'd bond for it over 30 years. So essentially, you're charging the enterprise fund twice each year for the cost of that plant. You're charging them for the amortization of the bond, and you're charging them for the depreciation.
But you're not charging them the amortization of the bond. You're paying the depreciation is recorded in the operating budget.
Yes.
And then the principal payment reduces the long-term liability on the balance sheet.
Yes, yes. Yep. So it's an anomaly with the enterprise funds that we don't see in the general fund.
Correct. And as you know, depreciation is a non-cash transaction, but it's
Exactly.
recorded as an expense. So from a cash perspective, it's not, we're not paying for it twice.
Right, so the depreciation being non-cash, we need to look at that a little bit differently than we would as a general expense in any other account.
Correct.
Okay, I'll get off my enterprise fund discussion.
Yeah, that is a distinct difference with the accounting treatment for the enterprise funds versus the general funds
Yep.
and highway funds.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we can break for lunch. See everybody at 1:30.
So this energy plan is taking